Oh. I could have told you it was from me.
And I would have said thank you.
Someone sees Mark. He's actually coming.
You got him blocked.
Did you see Kurt?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you see Kurt? He's here?
You got stopped.
He got stuck?
Stopped. Oh, he's coming in.
Okay. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Here.
Alderman Braithwaite. Here. Alderman Nguyen.
Here.
Alderman Wilson.
Here.
Alderman Holmes.
Here.
Alderman Tindem.
He's here.
Alderman Grover.
Here.
Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burks. 9-0.
We have a quorum. Welcome to the Monday, December 10th, 2012 meeting of the Evanston City Council. The first item on the agenda is the mayor's public announcements, and I have one. For the third time in 4 seasons, Northwestern will play in a New Year's Day bowl game
All right.
after accepting a bid to the 2013 TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida. Kickoff is on Tuesday, January 1st, set for 11 a.m. with national television coverage provided by ESPN2 and the radio call in Chicago available on WGN 720 and WNUR 89.3. Northwestern will be making its first ever appearance in the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl, which is in its 68th season, and it's the 6th oldest college bowl game. And Northwestern, the mayor confidently predicts, is going to win this one. Go Cats! And if everyone could be seated, if possible, so the fire department isn't upset, although we have more of the police department than the fire department here. If we could have clear aisles, that would be great. There are seats in the front. Next is the city manager's public announcements.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, we have many this evening. First, I'd like to call upon the Chief of Police, Richard Eddington. And Madam Mayor, I believe he would like your assistance in making some presentations.
Mr. City Clerk, if you could come down and join us, and this will be the oath of office for the promotion of 3 individuals. Aretha Hartley will go to Deputy Chief, Angela Hartsglass will go to Commander, and Jason Garner will go to Sergeant. They'll take the oath of office now. Mr.
Will the officers please come forward now? Raise your right hand. And in the place I say I, you put your name. In the place I say your office, you put your office. Right?
I, Angela Hartsglass,
Having been promoted to the office of
having been promoted to the office of commander
in the city of Evanston,
in the city of Evanston,
in the county of Cook aforesaid,
in the county of Cook aforesaid,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the office of
and I will faithfully discharge the office of commander, deputy chief,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You need something to write on here.
Next, Madam Mayor, I'd like to call on Suzette Robinson, our Director of Public Works, to introduce our new city engineer.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, Clerk Green, and City Manager. I'm Suzette Robinson, the Director of Public Works, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce our new Division Manager for Engineering and City Engineer, Mr. Homayun Peruz.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, Mr. City Manager, Mr. City Clerk. I am Homayun Peruz. I'm coming from City of Ann Arbor, which is also a university town, and also shares many of the values and standards that City of Evanston holds. I can tell you a lot more about myself or City of Ann Arbor, whichever you like, or stop here. I was the city engineer for City of Ann Arbor for the past 12 years. We work on many large and small capital improvement projects with focus on sustainability, on non-motorized transportation, and the list goes on. But again, I don't want to take your time with those type of details.
Welcome, and we're very glad you're here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call on Jim Fury and Johanna Neiden from our Economic Development Department to talk about our Shop Evanston for the Holidays promotions. Jim, good evening.
Good evening, City Manager, Mayor Tisdall, Alderman, City Clerk Green. I just want to briefly go over some of the efforts that the Economic Development Division have been pursuing in the last few weeks and that we will continue to pursue up through the holiday season. To help support and promote shopping locally in Evanston here, the City of Evanston's Economic Development Division has distributed a number of window clings to different businesses throughout the City of Evanston. We've also purchased print advertising in Time Out Chicago magazine and the Evanston Roundtable newspaper. To cover our bases, we also did some online and radio advertising as well, again, with the general theme of Shop Evanston, Shop Local, Keep Your Tax Dollars Local this holiday season. So some of the more specifics are up there on the slide for you to review. But overall, I think the overall message was to kind of keep those dollars local and try to engage as many residents and visitors of Evanston in as many different forms of media as we can. We also have a slide of some different examples of some of these advertisements. If we could go to the next slide, please, which I have here. So we have the Evanston Roundtable on the top, Evanston Now website in the middle, and then Time Out Chicago magazine at the bottom there. And below you've got the weeks that these advertisements will be running. Next, we've got just some photographic examples of these window clings in a couple of businesses along Noyes Street, Rolling to Go and Noyes Street Cafe. And then finally, each of the window clings and each of our advertisements that we've purchased to help, again, encourage shopping Evanston for the holidays have encouraged residents and visitors to take a look at the city's new economic development website, which is evanstonedge.com. On there's a feature story about shopping local, shopping Evanston for the holidays, and a number of different community events taking place throughout the entire month of November and December are listed there. You can see in the red box on the slide, December 15th, which is this this Saturday, is Shop Evanston for the Holidays Day. So it's a citywide event, and we're really encouraging Evanston residents and businesses and visitors to go out, shop local, and support your local businesses this holiday season. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, Suzette Robinson, our Director of Public Works, or excuse me, Jim Mayworm, our Superintendent of Streets and Sanitation, is here to talk about holiday trash and recycling collection schedules.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
And you know, it still hasn't snowed since you've worked here.
Getting a bad reputation with the local children for that, too, so I'm terribly sorry about that if it offends anyone. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, Jim Mayworm, Superintendent of Streets and Sanitation. I just wanted to run through our winter holiday collection schedule for solid waste and recycling very briefly. On December 25th, or 24th and 25th, there'll be no recycling or solid waste collection. Those collections will resume on December 26th and be essentially 2 days behind. All collection activities will work hard to get caught up by the weekend at that point, and we expect everything to resume and be back to a normal schedule by Friday at the latest on Saturday. For the New Year's holiday on January 1st, which is a Tuesday, that is essentially a one-day holiday. There'll be no recycling or solid waste collection that day. All those collections will resume again on January 2nd. If there's no questions, that is essentially
When's it going to
schedule.
snow, Jim?
Might be a white Christmas this year.
Okay.
That's all I can say. Thank you.
And lastly, Madam Mayor, I'd like to ask Catherine Hurley, our Sustainable Programs Coordinator, to come up and talk about a new initiative we're involved in with Nicor Gas.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Council, City Manager Bobkowitz, and City Clerk Green. Catherine Hurley, Sustainable Programs Coordinator. So I'm here tonight to announce that the City of Evanston is going to be participating in a new and exciting project in collaboration with Nicor Gas, the Village of Oak Park, the Center for Neighborhood Technology, and the City of Evanston in the Nicor Gas Energy Efficiency Program Challenge. So this challenge is a new initiative to foster energy efficiency awareness and action within local communities. And as part of the challenge, Nicor Gas will be awarding up to $25,000 in cash to go towards an energy efficiency project in our community. So this is the first Nicor Gas Energy Efficiency Program Challenge that's going to be taking place in Evanston and Oak Park in parallel, with plans to expand to other communities in the future. So for every homeowner and business that participates in one of 6 Nicor Gas programs, will be awarded $50 to go towards this pot of money that we're going to be hopefully putting towards a project in our community, up to $25,000. The challenge will basically start January 1 and go through March 31st. And at that time, however much money we've raised will go to a project in the community. Now, in our collaborative way, the City of Evanston as a community will have the opportunity to vote on which community organization is going to be receiving this up to $25,000 in cash. We're going to do an online voting process that we're going to be doing with the Engage Evanston website that will hopefully be launching very soon. And we have 4 awesome community organizations that will be eligible for the money: the Child Care Center of Evanston, the Evanston History Center, the McGaw YMCA, and the YWCA Evanston North Shore. So look for more information on the city's website soon about how to participate in the 6 programs, as well as how to vote for which organization you'd like the money to go to. More information is going to be on the City of Evanston website, cityofelvanston.org/Nicor Gas Challenge. We're also going to be having a planning meeting this Wednesday to rally volunteers and citizens and people in the business community to help get us launched on recruiting volunteers so we can raise as much money as we can. Wednesday, December 12th, 3 p.m. in the Civic Center, room 2200. And finally, I'd just like to introduce Jim Tanzer, who is the City of Evanston Nicor Gas rep, who just wanted to say a couple of quick sentences about how excited Nicor Gas is that we're going to participate in this program.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me talk for a couple minutes. I'm Jim Tanzer. I'm the Manager of Community Relations and Economic Development for Nicor Gas and basically the municipal representative. And Mayor Tisdale, thank you very much for allowing this challenge to go through, and City Manager Bobkowitz, we really appreciate it. The thing with us very quickly is energy efficiency programs are out throughout all the utility companies. But one of the big things is all of our programs are really geared towards the individual homeowner or business. This is an opportunity to work at a municipal level, and we want to congratulate Evanston as the first. You and Oak Park are the first ones that we've approached to do this. And, of course, the hope is that It's very successful, and that you can raise up to $25,000 for additional sustainability programs. We know at NICOR how important it is, because every year we do talk about your carbon footprint, where there's a request to us to provide you how much gas is used during a particular year. We do, as a company, understand that, and one of the reasons why our energy efficiency people came to you first to ask for your interest in the challenge. Thank you again for your time. Thank you again for your involvement. Take care.
Thank you for choosing Evanston.
And that concludes my announcements, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager. City Clerk, do you have communications for us?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have a few I will give out. Since Governor Quinn signed in the new bill on December the 5th, the time for submitting your petitions and nominations and other documents for the 2013 consolidated election has been moved from December 17th up until December 26th, 5 p.m. So you can start turning your petitions and your nominations on this coming Monday the 17th from 8:30 to 5 p.m. And the 26th will be open at least until 5. We may not be open the whole day. Don't have to be open the whole day, but at least 2 to 3 hours before 5 o'clock. If you're going to turn in any petitions on the last day, you have to be in the office before I close the doors at 5, or you're not get on the ballot. Your petitions will not be accepted. You have to be inside the office at 5. That is a ruling from the Illinois Board of Elections. Also, from the Illinois Municipal League, all members of any committee in the city has to take the mandatory online training of the Open Meetings Act. Those who are already in office as of the 1st of January, you have until December 31st to take it. And those who come on in with the next election, then they have 90 days after that. So make sure that you get on board and get your Open Meetings Act under the belt. Once you do that, you'll get a certificate at the end. Send me a copy of that to the city clerk's office so that we'll have a record of it. Okay? I think that's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Next is citizen comment. We're very glad you're here to speak. Please give your name and address. And each speaker has 3 minutes. I'm going to call the first 4 speakers, and please come up after the person in front of you has finished. First is Ruth Ann DeWolf, Susan Trishman, Darnell Johnson, and Kelly Breast Van Kempen. If you could give your name and address, that would be great.
Alderman, Mayor, my name is Ruth Ann DeWolf. I live at 2323 McDaniel Avenue, Three Crowns Park Retirement Community. I want to speak on behalf of the issue 01 dealing with Kurt's Cafe. Kurt's Cafe on Central Street was the dream of Susie Trishman. I know Susie well because before she opened her dream, which involved working and helping young people who are at risk. Susie was our director of community activities, and she was remarkable. When Susie said she would do something, she did it. When she promised that something would be done, it was done. That's Susie Trishman. Just one of the projects that she got started for us at Three Crowns Park was taking plastic bags, cutting them into ribbons. Some of us put them together, made them into balls, and with these used plastic bags, we crocheted mats for the homeless. And then they can be rolled up, they can be easily washed. And then we had a strap so the homeless could carry them over their shoulders. That's just one of the accomplishments that Susie finished for us at Three Crowns. Kurt's Cafe is becoming a neighborhood gathering place. It's a very, very special place. And her work with the young people at risk is exemplary. I strongly support any and all assistance you can provide to Susie Trishman and to Kurt's Cafe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Alderman. I'm Susan Trishman, 2608 Noyes Street, and I am with Kurt's Cafe as well. I didn't know I'd be limited to 3 minutes, so I'll have to morph my speech a little bit. But as you know, we work with at-risk youth at Kurt's Cafe, and many of you have been there, and I really appreciate that. What's very important for you to understand is the youth that we work with are not necessarily able to be served in other of our organizations here in Evanston. We have great youth-based organizations, but our kids are at a little different level than they are. Most of our kids are ex-offenders, though not all of them, and their needs are much higher. Many of our kids are also homeless, and their needs are much different. So at the cafe thus far, we've been able to job place 3 and get 1 kid into college. We also have 3 right now that are going to be job placed by the end of the week, 2 through Youth Job Center. We have 2 that have taken their food service sanitation certification test and will be certified in Evanston as well as Chicago. We have 2 youth that are working with us without stipends, just at the cafe every single morning at 7 o'clock, just to hang out, eat, and to learn job skills. And they're there to stay off the street, is what they've told us. It's not, it's their time to get out of the street, but they had no other vehicle to do that, and Kurt's Cafe has provided that for them. One thing that we have to understand is that our kids, because they are ex-offenders, have almost a 50% chance of reoffending, and the severity of their offenses generally do go up. So with that statistic in mind, we're going to pay for them one way or another. We're going to pay for them now, or we're going to pay for them later. When they come out of incarceration, they come back with many skills for which I hope they would never learn, but they come back to our neighborhoods. So really, Kurt's Cafe can help them now before that happens, or we will, as a community, have to help them after, when something even worse happens. Kurt's has also become a place where a lot of people just have formed a community there. There's a lot of people that have met one another. I think we're a great addition to our neighborhood. Our community has embraced our students like I could have never asked for. And just this month alone, we've had 2 mitzvah projects at the cafe. And one student, I just want to quote what she said in her mitzvah speech, because I think it really speaks to what Kurt's Cafe can do and hopefully will continue to do. She wrote in her speech that her and her friends sat down in circle with many of the students, and they were able to ease the fears and give people a chance to focus on similarities rather than differences. And she publicly stated at her temple a quote that one of our students, and I think this kind of says it all, that you should never stand over someone unless you're helping them up. And then she went on to say, I think that's a perfect example of what Kurt's Cafe does. So I thank you very much for considering our proposal, and I'll answer any questions later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, City Council, I'd like to thank you for having me here today, and also apologize for not being at the last meeting. I had a touch of the bug, and that's what the doctors call it, the bug. Luckily, I thought it was pneumonia, but fortunately enough, it was not. Moving on, I'd just like to make some clarity on this issue regarding the facade grants opposed to the issue of a loan. I'm requesting a facade grant. I've been questioning and asking about it since the beginning of the project. Unfortunately, through all of getting everything organized for the project, I got to Steve at the very end. He explained to me it was about $4,000 something left. He asked that I needed. I told him it would be very much appreciated. I understand thoroughly a grant is a grant and a loan is a loan. I was given a loan. This is facade grant money for basically taking your exterior and giving it a facelift, trying to bring some curb appeal to the community and its business areas, commercial areas. and also softening the eye when people are riding by in properties that's pretty much distressed or need some type of facelift. There's no longer any type of renderings to put in front of you. It's there. You can reach out and touch it. You can go by and see it. I understood very clearly what Alderman Brathwaite was asking when he told me to take on this project, or he supported me in the project. He wanted a first class, something that the West Side could be proud, the West Side of Evanston could be proud of, and something that stood up and showed quality, workmanship, and class. That's what's there. If you ride by, you can see it. I don't think it's too much more to say on the issue, aside from I want to being very clear that this is not asking for any additional money as far as a loan. I didn't need any more money when I took on the loan. I am in a position to get it closed. We've had a great deal of obstacles. They come with projects. Once we cut those floors open, the nightmare started, but that's between myself, my wife, and making sure we get the project done. And that's our alternative, is to make sure this project is done. We're scheduling now for the 27th of December. We think we'll make that date. Bottom line, the 1st, it has to be open. In business, you can't keep going spending without starting to have something come in. So on that note, I would just like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to put in the grant, and hopefully we can have it approved. I think it's only 7.3% of what I put out on the facade. The facade was $79,000, and I'm hoping, I'll be granted the balance of the money. It's $5,000 something needed to
Mr. Johnson, I need you to wrap up, please.
Okay. Well, that's it.
Hey, that's a good
All
wrap
right.
up. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Alderman, City Manager Bobkowitz, and Clerk Green. My name is Kelly Brest Van Kempen. I live at Park and Bennett in the 6th Ward location of Kurt's Cafe. And I want to speak to what a marvelous addition to the neighborhood this has been. Not only is the food great, and you've all got to go and try it, but what Susan is doing in this cafe is extraordinarily special, giving these young people a chance where they might not otherwise have it. So I'm very much in support of it. I should also tell you that Kurt's Cafe sits between my house and Northminster Presbyterian, where I'm a member, and we are absolutely delighted that at Northminster that it's been added to the neighborhood as well. So I ask for your support for this grant and this loan. They are doing an awful lot of good. And by the way, if you don't know it, Susan Treishman is also involved in a restorative justice project, working with kids who have just done things that are wrong, things that have not been fair to the people around them. And hearing her talk about that is another, just a treat. Well, not a treat, but something that is just marvelous to hear. So I urge your support. It's a great addition to the neighborhood, and we need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mary Rosinski, Padma Rao, BK Rao, and Junad Rizki.
We're together. I'm Mary Rosinski. I live on Chancellor. I'm in the 7th Ward.
And I'm Lori Dube. I live in Skevinston at 9318 Avers.
So I guess I want to say, having been at Kurt's, I'm in support of it. I think it's a fabulous economic development use of economic development funds. And it's also, ironically, it's between 3 real estate offices. And I know that a lot of us have been taking an opportunity to bring our clients there, and they're so supportive of it. So I just think it's great. I hope we all vote for it. And Lori's there more on a different level also.
I am working with Susie, who is an inspiration, to act as a community relations person for Kurt's Cafe. I have a background in marketing and social work. And I found that one of the things that we're doing is reaching out and trying to collaborate with other organizations in town. And part of my role, I think, is to help build some of those bridges with other agencies, other businesses, other people, and to sort of try to make Kurtz a hub for the community on lots of levels.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Padma Rao, 2246 Sherman. My comments were approved by my attorney. A new year is approaching and elections are around the corner. Taxpayers may wonder how much they've paid and will continue to pay for the current regime's violations of minorities' constitutional rights. A federal judge ordered the city to pay over $45,000 in the La Salvia civil rights lawsuit. This council's refusal to give a sincere apology to a young victim of racial profiling resulted in another civil rights lawsuit in federal court. Your 8th Ward member recorded her animus against Veolia in the video for the August 8, 2011 ANPW committee meeting, resulting in Veolia suing the city. The complaint in the Davies lawsuit describes your 8th Ward member's involvement leading to civil rights litigation in federal court. Last month, another civil rights lawsuit was filed against the city in federal court, this time for ADA violations. I submit that taxpayers would prefer that tax dollars be spent wisely instead of paying for lawsuits resulting from your unconstitutional actions and reckless statements. Stop violating taxpayers' constitutional rights or pay for the resulting lawsuits yourselves. I submit that tax dollars are not your personal pet project piggy bank. The same 8th Ward member whose words and deeds resulted in the Veolia and Davies lawsuits insists that taxpayers should fund a wine and cheese bar. I believe that taxpayers would prefer that their tax dollars should be spent to protect and encourage our youth and to help people keep their jobs and homes. Stop diverting tax dollars to your chosen few ones and spend our money to benefit all taxpayers regardless of the color of their skin. I submit that it's obscene for you to feast at taxpayers' expense before every meeting when taxpayers are struggling to make ends meet. What I find truly appalling is that the city tried to shut down the soup kitchen at St. Paul's Lutheran Church because the sink isn't big enough. The church is trying to raise $20,000 to meet the city's demands, or else they'll have to turn away the hungry during this holiday season. But you make taxpayers pay for your food. At your last meeting, your mayor interrupted my mother and invited your manager to argue with 2 other taxpayers during citizen comment. Your mayor's unconstitutional actions were once again directed against minorities. Your mayor allowed a white woman to speak about Kendall at your August 13th meeting, but your mayor interrupts attacks and tries to silence me and my mother when we speak about the same Kendall issue. We object to this council's vote at Kendall, sentencing over 24 mature trees to death for no reason and endangering pedestrians with an alley that dumps traffic onto the narrowest street. The city code requires that public safety should be promoted and traffic congestion should be lessened. The city code requires that existing trees shall be preserved wherever possible. Some of the trees at Kendall are older than Evanston. Obey the city code and protect the trees and pedestrians at Kendall. Stop violating minorities' constitutional rights. Do taxpayers a favor and don't run for re-election. We can't afford more of the same mess. Protect the trees at Kendall. Protect the Kendall trees.
B.K. Rao, 2246 Sherman. My comments were approved by my attorney. The year 2012 will be ending soon. Your 4-year term here will be ending also. Look back at your actions and inactions, and your inner voice, if you have any, will tell you not to come back. Your attitude towards taxpayers that do not agree with you is typical of tyrants, but not of elected officials. The way you treated me and my daughter is a badge of shame you can wear forever. Even at the last meeting, the mayor tried to silence me by interrupting. She declared that she has authority over the meeting, like the reigning queen of a bygone era. Ms. Tisdall, this is 2012. We are living in the United States of America. Evanston is not kingdom you are trying to rule. I was speaking during my 3 minutes of citizen comment. As a taxpayer, I have a right to bring my views to the council. Another example of your lame attempts to discourage people from speaking is the way you allowed your manager to characterize another taxpayer's comments as, I quote, accusations. The taxpayer simply stated facts and did not accuse anyone. I further point out that your attempts to glorify your achievements by wasting money on lip service programs are useless. Your so-called race relations went nowhere. People watch the way you treat me and my daughter because of the color of our skin, and they know your words are hollow. You refuse to protect trees, but you talk about a green city, green energy, green environment. You talk about encouraging businesses and job creations, but taxpayers remember how you treated Veolia, the KEG, and most recently, the 7-Eleven. 3 minutes is not enough to elaborate on your harmful tenure. 3 minutes are not enough to elaborate on your harmful tenure. Protect the trees at Kendall. Don't waste our money. Learn to be civil to your employers, the taxpayers, and I shall return.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, as a point of privilege, I am a member of St. Paul's Lutheran congregation, and I wanted to comment about the soup kitchen renovation. We have we applied for a grant and received it from the Lutheran Church of America, and we have also been given a challenge grant, and we are well on our way to meeting that challenge, and we are very much looking forward to undertaking the kitchen renovation. No, the soup kitchen will not be stopped over the holiday. We serve over 5,000 meals there every year on Sundays. And we are very excited by the renovations that are going to be taking place at St. Paul's Lutheran. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, as a point of order, aldermen are not supposed to respond.
It's Mr. Rizki's turn.
First of all, aldermen are not supposed to respond during citizen comment. Read your own rules.
It is
Second
Mr.
of all,
Rizki's
the information
turn.
I got is from St. Paul's own website. The point is the city is threatening to shut them down.
Ms.
That's the
Rizki,
point that's being made.
Would you let Mr. Rizki
How dare
speak?
you break your own rules?
Mr. Rizki.
Okay. Tonight I will talk about what I call Wallygate now. What is Wallygate? The city of Evanston's attempt to basically cover up and misrepresent some facts that city employees stole medical benefits. While I have a FOIA and the city basically omitted everything, at the last council meeting after I spoke, Wally did say, he made a comment that several city employees were involved in this. Well, that's not quite accurate. 14 city employees were involved, plus 3 retirees, and that's not several employees. No funds have been recovered, no employees have been terminated, and no employees have been reported to the authority. Supposedly, 7 employees have been disciplined. The city, interestingly enough, has claimed in the FOIA and several other memos I have that between $100,000 and $450,000 in savings have occurred here. Well, a rational person of some intelligence might think that's how much has been stolen every year. But I mean, really, I think the city doesn't want to admit to the theft that may have occurred here. And that amounts to millions of dollars of taxpayer money. A memo was also sent to council members back in June, basically claiming the audit was over. Like so many things here, there's basically a document, and it's basically given to the public in a verbal form from a city employee or a council member. When you open the documents and read the documents, there's different things there. Council members and the mayor did have knowledge of this issue, I think. My issue, though, is this city has thieves on staff, people who stole our money, and they still work here. Mayor Tisdale, you're always involved in social issues and opening clinics and gun buybacks and many things, but these things become meaningless if we allow theft to be in the city with no consequences. And I think a former governor basically was known for his kids' care program, but basically theft had occurred, quite a bit of theft. I would suggest it's time really to discuss this whole thing. And basically the city needs to tell people what happened here, admit to the amount of money taken, and basically come up for a reason why none of these employees were terminated. I'd really suggest after the holidays the city devotes some real time to this. I don't need another 1-minute comment from anybody up here, but really tells the public completely what happened here. I'm sure none of you want to be talking about this for 18 months. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iskey. Next is Adrian Dorsch, Stephen A. Toledo, Simbrit Dorsch, and Justin Blake together, and Betty Esther. It's the holidays.
Happy holidays. Speaking of holidays, just to let you know, I'm proud to be a resident here in Evanston. In Inglewood, we are putting together a healthy holiday. And thanks for making me ambassador of health here in Evanston. We are going throughout the community and spreading the good word. I'll be in Inglewood December 14th, and I'll be cooking a gourmet meal for that community. And in that community, they'll be learning not only educational skills, but how to eat healthy. So thank you so much for that. But to move on to what we need to do for our community, I have a program called Entrepreneur Endeavors. I have over 400 participants in that program. Haven't been able to serve that program in its entirety because of lack of funding. Due with the climate that is going on in our community, we are looking at some sites right now to be open for 24 hours a day to get the kids off the street. I can sit here and go on and on about the things I've accomplished and how good stock I'm from. Ms. Lorraine Morton was my principal at Haven. Pecky's was my first job. Mrs. Holmes, I came through Family Focus. Mamie Smith, Mr. B. So I'm made of good stock, and I'm made of what is proven in the real, and what Evanston stands for. I'm going to give the floor to one of my students, one of my participants, but I'll tell you a little bit about the program. It's called Entrepreneur Endeavors, and my foundation is the Foundation of Music. In music, the kids come in, and through learning how to develop they come in, but they don't know that they're developing a business, a project. They come in and they sing, they do poetry, some learn how to work the equipment, and at the end of that, they have an actual project that they can sell. So what we do is we show them through a teachable moment of putting together a compilation of music on a CD that they can turn their passion into something tangible that they can sell. And so, of course, I'm not a lawyer or a doctor. We outsource them to Chicago State to learn that, and we have a law firm that we work with. But I think it would be a disservice if I sit here and talk about my program myself, because what you want to know in Evanston with so many non-for-profits, and I believe there's nothing wrong with having a lot of non-for-profits, but there's something about exposing them being proven. When I grew up, we had tons of non-for-profits in Evanston, Co-Pop, and I can go on and on. FAM is still available to these kids. But the one thing I don't see in literature is the work that is proven. I'm not saying they don't work. I'm just saying these kids are doing something. Let's broadcast it. So I'm going to give the floor to one of my students. I've been with him since, well, actually, I'll let you speak, Mr. Toledo. Thank you for the floor.
How you guys doing today? My name is Stephen Toledo, and as you see, I am a product of Entrepreneur Endeavors. And the main thing I would like to stress is that how important it is to have a mentor, and how just having like I said, how important it is to have a mentor. I was blessed enough. I was born on the south side of Chicago. I moved to Evanston at 10 years old. I'm 23 now, And like I said, I was blessed enough I was blessed enough I was blessed enough to have an opportunity to have a mentor, to run into somebody like Adrian, and for him to have a program like a non-for-profit called Entrepreneur Endeavors. Being at Haven, I was not the best reader. I couldn't comprehend as fast as other kids did, as well as I always had a thing for music. And other things I had an interest in, but I didn't know, I wasn't sure of. But I was always interested in doing music. And being introduced to a man, as I said, as Adrian, and him having a non-for-profit that is based off entrepreneurship. He had a studio, and again, I was interested in music. He captured me through music. And through music, I was brought up, and it inspired me to acknowledge and recognize other talents that I have. Again, I wasn't the best reader. I wasn't the coolest guy in the world. I mean, I was a nice guy, but I wasn't the, thank you. I wasn't the popularest guy in school, but that's not what's important. It's what it has did for me. It not only helped me, but it changed my life. Not knowing that I would be able today run my own production company, being inspired by someone like Adrian. I always wanted to be an artist, just a musician. Like I said, with him, how can I put it? It helped me. Because now I see kids at Evanston Township, I see kids at Haven, and I see how sometimes they can get lost. And through having a mentor, it showed me how important it is to be able to stand up and talk about your experience, your testimony, because you never know what somebody has been through, because it might relate to you. Like, he has been through a lot, and him talking to me daily, constantly, consistently, it got to me. And it sparkled a lighter in me, a flame in me, and it brought something out of me. And therefore, I was able to go through I was able to, like I said, just to figure out a lot within me. To me, it's very important to have mentors and to be a part of a program that has to do with mentorship, because it does change. It really does. It changes lives. It really does help. And I mean, that's basically it. Thank you.
That's perfect. I needed you to wrap up.
Hi, Simbrit Dorch. I just wanted to say, being a new Evanstonian for, I'd say, approximately the last 5.5 years, I have seen that there are a lot of programs in Evanston for the youth, YOU, and we have wonderful programs, Family Focus. But as Miss Susan was saying from Kurt's Cafe, there are some kids that get lost. They fall through the cracks. And in collaboration with programs like Kurt's Cafe, Entrepreneur Endeavors wants to fill the void. We want to stand in that gap and give our kids some place to go, some place to give them some hope. Right now, we're seeing a very, very violent climate happening. A lot of death over the last month, in particular in the 5th Ward. And it saddens me because these are children that I know have come through some of the programs or maybe have been missed in some of the youth organizations that we have, and we have to find a way to reach them, the ones that are the lost ones. And a lot of times, it's through music. Everyone loves music. It is a connector. It is a unifier. It brings people together. Even people in foreign countries, they know the Beatles. They know some things. They may not even speak English, but you put on Come Together by the Beatles, they know what you're talking about. So through our program, Entrepreneur Endeavors, we're seeking to shed a light and bring these kids into a safe place where they can flourish, they can be nourished, and thrive. And Adrian was mentioning the program that we're hosting on Friday in Inglewood, a neighborhood that is dealing with its own devastating situations of violence and crime, the highest crime rate in the city of Chicago, but we're going through and with Adrian's title of being an ambassador of health of Evanston. It opened a door to allow us to be able to go in and show them, hey, there's hope. You can get healthy, get your family healthy, and be the change that you want to see inside of your community. The event is happening this Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. through Kennedy King College. It's on 63rd Street, 63rd in Halsted. If you want more information, go to indiegogo.com. That's INDIE gogo.com/Healthy Holidays Inglewood. Please support it. Please support Evanston. We need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know we all get 3 minutes, and I believe I didn't get 3, but I want to say something.
You got about 20 seconds
Thank
left.
you so much. Thank you so much, Mayor Tinsdale. And sometimes we misdiagnose our kids. And when I say that, often I see a lot of kids in my program getting put on medicine in the public schools here. One of the things I didn't notice is when I ran for alderman, and I don't say against Mrs. Holmes, I ran with Ms. Holmes because she was the one who told me to pretty much growing up under her tutelage to stand for something. Either you stand for something or you fall for nothing. And when I say that, I ran with her because when I ran, it was her spirit that ignited me. Mr. Jean-Baptiste, Ms. Lorraine Morton, and like I said, a lot of pillars of our community. And when I say children are misdiagnosed, when I went and ran for School Board 65-202, it was to unite the school board as a catalyst move. I went from 8th grade into 9th grade, and my best friend, Brett, was going to honors, and I was going to special education. And I know education starts at home, but it shouldn't have been that big of a difference. A lot of times we medicate our kids.
I do need you to wrap up.
Okay, a lot of times, this is very important. We have kids dying in the street, and I understand we need to wrap up. And please, I don't mean to disrespect you, Mrs. Mayor. I don't. If I can get a few more seconds. A lot of time we misdiagnose these kids, and they can't stop moving in class. And what you got to understand, I was one of those kids, and what you know what it is? It's a rhythm. It's a rhythm. That's why they can't stand still. Some kids learn different. Some kids learn by rhythm. Some kids can sit still and just learn by sitting still. Just as sure as nobody in this room has the same fingerprint. I don't believe in overall blanket program, but I believe that there are enough kids that move to a rhythm that are misdiagnosed. Let me host those kids and show you something different. I have 400 of them. And that's out of respect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor. Justin Blake speaking, councilmen and women. Don't have currently an address here, but I'm thinking about moving back. But better than that, I have roots. We have roots in this community. Our father, Reverend Jacob Blake, built Prim Towers. They just named Jacob Blake Manor after my father. When he came to this town, there was not open housing. There was a plethora of other issues around African Americans that he marched with Martin Luther King about and came back and marched in this city with other great people and citizens of this community. That was then. This is now. There are some serious issues within our community that we must address, and we hope to support Adrian, who's behind us. We also, because there's so many different areas that need to be covered, support when talk to some kids down at Curtis's personally after being in the streets as a young man and quote-unquote a gangbanger, and then receiving a scholarship and graduating through college and going overseas to South Australia and the South Pacific and playing ball and finishing our education in political science to come back with a degree to work with and cure some of what we see happening. It's not a it doesn't take a science degree. It just needs a little TLC. We have somewhat of a business plan combined with some community service stuff that we'll be implementing. But as we said in our meeting Thursday, as we're marching for peace after the death of Justin Murray and talking to the young men at Curtis's, that when you have these setups that I'm talking about, Curtis, and this young man that haven't a proven history, we want to be the Miracle-Gro to them and support them. We also have some different ideas of our own with our yet unnamed organization. We had the blessing of having Mrs. Holmes, the chief of police, the head of Evanston Township, and many other business people there that prevailed themselves to lend us their services. We mean business. We will be out here. We can do some things you can't do. But it will help tremendously this community continue to be the shining star that not only when they mention Northwestern and Evanston's name will be synonymous with success, but the community at large. And we thank God for Curtis's, this young man's service up to present, and we merely will be a face that you will be seeing more often and more regularly, dealing and working with our youth, as well as helping our families, because we need to bring our families back to a cohesive state. We will be working, mentoring young men in many different areas, men and young women, and we just thank you for your time, and just want to say hello to everybody, because we will be seeing each other in the future of this year. Thank you again, Your Honor.
Thank you.
My name is Betty Esther. I stay at 2031 Church Street. I was at, can't remember what council meeting was, might have been the last one, but in the minutes that was written, I do have, it need to be corrected. I know that the minutes are summary and they are summarized, but the summary that was made about my comments wasn't exactly correct. It says I was confused. I wasn't confused. The issue that I spoke on was, why does the city send out RFQs, get bids, approve bids, before you have approved a budget? The city manager was kind enough to have Mr. Lyons to talk to me outside. We talked out there for a great deal, and he explained it. And when he finished, my statement still remains the same. Why do that? I've worked in the nonprofit sector and in the private sector. Won't say for how many years, because I'm not going to tell you how old I am. But when we did that, we always had a budget. We approved that budget and said, this is the amount that we are going to spend on this project. Once that budget was approved and we knew that money was in place, then we looked for contractors to do that job. Here last week, October the 30th, we had got a bid. They went out, they came back, we opened it up, we announced who was the owner of that bid, but we had not approved the budget. Although we would tell the man, well, if we don't approve that money, you don't get that job. I think that's a disservice to business and to the community, because that's not transparent. Because to put a bid together is not an easy task. That is hard work, that people spend time and money. They pay their staff to do that. Prove the budget first and then send out those requests. Because doing it the other way is not transparent. It said we get people out there, you bet we know what we do, then we're going to build that budget. No, then I have questions about our budget all along, is that we are building a budget based on somebody that we are trying to help in business, and I don't think that is correct. So, would you please correct the minutes? Because if I was confused, I would have stand here and said, I am confused. Please clarify this issue. Like the thing with Mr. King and the project over on Emerson, I stated I had not read the inclusionary zoning, so I really wasn't that much up on it, and how did it have to do with it being in affordable housing and adding more into it. Dennis Marino said that was rental, so it didn't make any difference. I stated I was not confused. What I stated was that it was not good business, and why are we
Ms.
collecting
Esther,
bids?
I'm sorry if you were characterized in any minutes as confused, and we will correct the minutes, but I do need you to wrap up.
Thank you. Thank you for your apology, but just correct the minutes. The apology wasn't necessary.
Thank you. That concludes public comments. Of course, this is Evanston.
Sorry, I missed the sign-in sheet. I'll be very brief. My name is Annette Logan. I'm here to just say that I'm in support of the new restaurant opening up at 2424 Dempster, Chicago Chicken and Waffles. I think it's a great opportunity to spur up the economic development that we really need on the west side of Evanston. The site was previously, it's been vacant for many years, and please drive by. They're doing the work. They're planning to open before the end of the year. They plan to employ at least 75 employees, servers, chefs, bartenders. I've seen the business, the drawings, the plans. I've gotten to know the business owner, Mr. Johnson, and his wife, probably around May, and just very excited about this location and how it will just really be a good addition to the west side. They also have 3 other restaurants in Chicago and started with the Roscoe Chicken and Waffles in Los Angeles. So the food is great. I have only lived 2 places, Evanston and LA, and that was one of the hot spots in Los Angeles. And if you probably don't think about eating chicken and waffles together, fried chicken, and I didn't, but I'm telling you it's the best. But they have more than that. And so they're, professional business owners that they came to Evanston and they want to be here. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now, does that actually conclude public comments? Yes, it does. City Manager, we have a special order of business.
Yes, Madam Mayor. This evening we're asking the council to review the 2013 street resurfacing and water main replacement plan. Suzette Robinson, our Director of Public Works, is here with a brief overview. As you know, the funds for these projects were all approved in your fiscal 2013 budget. We asked that we would come back to you at this evening's council meeting with the specific street segments, and Ms. Robinson's here to detail those for you tonight.
Good evening again, Madam Mayor, City Council, Clerk Green, and City Manager Bobkowitz. As the City Manager mentioned, I wanted to go over the 2013 Street Improvement Program. Just to kind of remind you some statistics about the street system in Evanston, we have over 190 lane miles, over 2.7 million square yards of pavement. 94% of the surfaces are asphalt, 6% are concrete, and our streets are evaluated every 5 years. The 2007 street resurfacing improvement program was actually completed in 2012. It actually took us just over 6 years to complete the 5-year program because of some development projects that moved some resurfacing projects back. And so now for 2013, we based our street priorities on the water main needs, the street conditions, field operations, and funding availability. The street evaluation process, as you know, in 2012, we also approved a reevaluation of the streets, and that project was completed this fall. And so we are now evaluating that data, and we'll be presenting a new 5-year plan in the spring that will go from 2014 to 2018, and that will come back to City Council in the spring of next year. So some of the strategies that we look at in terms to rehabilitate the streets, in some cases it may be a situation where we can do minor patching and crack filling, and that's done typically in-house with our streets and sanitation crews. The grinding and surface overlay is also for maintenance purposes, and that can be done either by contractor or by in-house crews. And then we move into some of the major work, which is all contracted out. The grinding for the neighborhood streets, where we do some minor base repairs, and we'll do some spot curb and gutter replacements, and then more robust jobs for the arterial roads. And in some cases, we may have to do a major reconstruction of the roads, and then we also, in certain situations, have to do water main replacements as well. So getting to what our priorities were for the 2013 program, the initial starting point for our program every year is funding availability. We have limited capital improvement funds and MFT motor fuel tax funds available for street resurfacing, as well as TIP funding in certain areas that we use, and then we have some grant projects as well. So to develop our street program, we first look at what are the water main replacement needs throughout the city, and we get that information from the utilities department based on where they have problems. Then we also look at any carryover projects from the previous years. And then this year, something new that we did, we normally do the comparative roadway conditions. A lot of times we use the IMS data, the pavement evaluation data to get that information. And this year we took some of the raw data that we had already collected, and we met with each individual ward alderman and conducted field inspections. And then we also took into consideration residential concerns and then any potential conflicts that would come up with other city projects as we developed our list. And without further ado, it's a little difficult to read, but I think everybody has the list in front of them of the streets that we have for 2013. And the top list that are listed in blue appropriately are water projects. So those are all the water main resurfacing, water main replacement priorities, where the roadways will also be resurfaced. And as you can see, we have water mains in just about every ward except, looks like 3 and 6. So there, all the other wards, there are water main needs for each of those. And then the next group includes the resurfacing list. The top project I will talk about, which is the Davis Street resurfacing and streetscape project, which is from Ridge Avenue to Benson. That's a grant that we requested, so we are showing $190,000 for a city share. So we should get notification within the next 2 weeks or so whether
Ms.
or not.
Robinson, excuse me, Alderman Fisk has a question.
Really minor comment. That's 4th Ward, not 1st Ward. Davis, between Ridge and Benson.
Oh, yes. Yes, it is. This is correct. Okay. So that needs to get corrected, and that would be based on receiving a grant project. And if we did not receive the grant, that project would be deferred. We have a few carryover projects from 2012. Isabella Street, which is a project that's being managed by the Village of Wilmette, and that will involve a sewer replacement on their part, and then they will also go through and take care of the resurfacing of the entire road. The city will pay 50% of the resurfacing costs, and Wilmette will cover the other 50%. Central Street is the emergency water main repair. That's primarily located in the 6th Ward. We did the water main replacement this fall and patch the street. We will come back and grind and resurface the street there. And then the last project is the Howard is Hartree Street. That's in the Hartree TIF area, and that was a project that was identified last year, but we didn't get an opportunity to get the project done before year end. So that will carry over until 2013. On the sheet in front of you, what we tried to do after we identified what the priority streets were for water mains, and then we looked at the grant-related projects. We looked at the rest of the money that was available for CIP and MFT and tried to kind of balance where the dollars are and where the most need was per ward. So that's the sheet that you have in front of you, that list. And I wanted to go over, we do have an exception to that list, and it involves the street and the Ninth Ward. As you can see, is several blocks more than the others, and that is based on Washington Street is probably the street in the worst condition in the entire city of Evanston. And from one end to the other, it's in pretty bad shape. And so we're recommending that the entire stretch be completed. Then we also have...
Excuse me, Alderman Grover has a question.
Thank you, Director Robinson. The portions of Prairie Avenue that you'll be resurfacing in 2013 are right to the west, as you know, of Kingsley and Haven schools. It'll be important to coordinate that project with the project that I think District 65 is undertaking at Haven School for renovations there that will affect the arrival dismissal areas, and if we can make sure we coordinate so that it all happens the way both entities envision.
Yes, we will do that, and we also have a sewer project that's going on in the same area. So
thank you.
Yes. And I guess that. So moving forward, as I mentioned before, for 2014 to 2018, our street improvement program, the roadway surface and road-based testing will be completed. It was completed this fall of 2012. We're going to work on verifying the conditions of the data that we received in the field this fall and winter. Utility coordination will occur the winter and spring of next year. We'll be also developing our 5-year program at the same time, working with all of our partners. And then the new city engineer will present the 5-year plan to City Council in the spring of 2013. I will take any questions if you have them.
Are there any questions? Alderman Tendem.
Yes, I just want to thank you for being able to complete the Central Street emergency repair this fall. And I know that was actually scheduled for next year, so moving that up was not easy, but certainly necessary. And just so residents know that the area has been and will continue to be a little more cleaned up, the surfacing will happen, as Ms. Robinson said, early next year.
Alderman Rainey.
Madam Mayor, are there any other questions?
Yes, there are.
Oh, okay. I was just going to move approval of... In fact, I think I will. I'll move approval of the special order of business, the 2013 street resurfacing and water main replacement program.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
Just a quick question, Director Robbins. First, thank you very much for a comprehensive report, and thank you. The day that I spent driving around the ward is probably one of my more, better informed days where I really understand all the work that goes into selecting the streets and all that stuff. So just for a point of clarification, for the 2 projects that are going to be in the 2nd ward that happen to be water projects, are we going to make sure that we do both sides of the road?
Yes, all the water projects that are listed above and any water main replacements in the future will resurface the entire width of the road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Suzette, just as further clarification, I think it would be helpful, especially along Davis Street, where the 4th Ward and 1st Ward come together. You have them almost all in the 1st Ward, and so Alderman Wilson and I share both sides. We each have one side of Davis Street. So I think it might be clearer if you made it Ward 1/4
Yes.
in those areas.
Yes, we will do that.
Okay.
Thank you. Alderman Burris?
Oh, actually, just want to say thank you for taking the time to drive around with all of us. It was very helpful in looking at the streets, and thank you for the Washington. I agree with you that may be one of the worst streets in the whole city, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Director Robinson. Oh, sorry, Alderman Rainey.
Nothing to do with your good work, but with the bad work of the state. I want to remind you of our trip down Asbury between Howard and Oakton. I promised my constituents for a long time that the state was going to improve that roadway. And when we went down it, it is like a roller coaster, bump, bump, bump. It's like a series of minor speed humps. But it's really the way the state improved the road. It really is a very bad job, and you are going to look into getting that resurfaced.
Yes, we did speak with the state. It's not a priority in terms of programming for resurfacing right now, but we do have it on our priority list to work in conjunction with them. But the earliest that it is being programmed at this point is 2016.
Well, it's not tolerable. We're going to have to find some special money in our coffers to do something there, get their permission to fix their roadway. And I encourage our new city engineer to take a ride down that street. It is absolutely outrageous that is the repair that they did. The roadway was much better, much smoother before they went on it and made those spot repairs. I mean, you have to admit it was awful, right?
It's different.
It's different. Yeah.
Very tactfully said. Seeing no more lights for questions, it's been moved and seconded to approve the 2013 street resurfacing and water main replacement program. Would the acting city clerk call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Aye. Alderman Nguyen. Aye. Alderman Wilson. Aye. Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tendem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover. Aye. Alderman Rainey. Aye. Alderman Burris. 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes. Alderman Rainey, could we have the consent agenda, please?
Yes, ma'am. The consent agenda is as follows. First, we ask your approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of November 26th. Next, the Administration and Public Works Committee met and has the following items for your approval. City of Evanston payroll through the 18th of November, $2,633,746.32. The City of Evanston bills through December 11, $21,684,470.03, and credit card activity period ending October 31st, $122,637.99. We ask the Committee, Administration Public Works, ask your approval for the agreement with MWH Americas, Inc. for water distribution modeling services in the not-to-exceed amount of $35,000 a year for 3 years. Funding is from the Water Fund. Approval of contract with Palatine Oil Company is requested for bulk oil, antifreeze, and lubricants. These purchases are for fiscal year 2013 in the amount of $59,979.50. Next item is a request for your approval for the purchase of 5 vehicles units in the amount of $121,444.40 as follows: from Curry Motors in the amount of $97,908, and Russo's Power Equipment Incorporated in the amount of $23,536.50. The committee asks your approval to authorize the manager to execute a contract for software licensing, implementation, and maintenance services with New World Systems in the amount of $596,000 for licensing and implementation, plus $407,700 for 5 years of maintenance and support. This is $81,540 a year, plus an estimated $36,300 in financing charges for a total cost of $1,040,000 to replace the city's current financial accounting, human resource, and payroll enterprise systems. Next is approval is requested for contract for purchase of insurance renewals, property, excess liability, and excess workers' compensation for fiscal year 2013. These are all renewals of our policies. Okay. The premium totals are $101,611 less than budgeted for 2013, which is a good thing. We're removing A 3.6 from the consent agenda. That will be addressed by the committee chair. Next is A37. Council approval is requested for emergency purchase of a traffic signal controller cabinet from Brown Traffic Products in the amount of $26,551. We ask your approval also for authorization for a sole source purchase and installation of a security camera system with current technologies in the amount of $60,622.13. The purchase and installation of 4 security cameras near ETHS was approved as part of the fiscal year 2013 budget process, $36,000 from FY 2012 funds in the city manager's contingency account, $24,622.13 from information technology safety equipment account. We ask your approval also of change order number 3 with CDM Smith for wholesale water sales engineering services in the not-to-exceed amount of $250,000. We recommend, along with staff, approval to authorize the city manager to execute a collective bargaining agreement with the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police Labor Council Officers Union effective March 2012 through December 31, 2013. City Council approval will ratify the tentative agreements executed throughout the negotiations process. We ask your approval also to authorize the manager to execute an agreement with the Youth Organization Umbrella Organization, YOU, for city to provide subcontract services to the Street Outreach Program grant, in effect from October 1 until September 30, 2013, and shall be renewed annually upon notification of the grant award. We ask your approval also of Resolution 84R12, which authorizes a modified purchasing procedure for the selection of the engineer and contractor on the chlorine systems upgrade at the water treatment facility. Engineering at $50,000 and construction at $200,000 of the chlorine system upgrade will be from the water fund. Next, the adoption of the next 3 ordinances is required by statute for the designation of the TIF. These are off the consent agenda. All 3 are off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair. The next item that we'll be dealing with is A11. The mayor recommends adoption of Ordinance 139-012 to provide the penalties against persons who deface or remove public art murals within the city of Evanston. This is for introduction, and I think also might be addressed by the committee chair regarding some discussion we had about that. Next is a series of resolutions having to do with abatement, and I'm going to read them as follows. Resolutions are 87R12, abatement for general obligation bonds series 2004, 88R12 for general obligation bonds series 2005, 89R12 for abatement of general obligation bond series 2006. Resolution 90R12 is abatement for general obligation bond series 2007. 91R12 for general obligation bonds 2008B. 92R12 general obligation bond series 2008C. 93R12 general obligation bonds 2008D. 94R12 abatement for general obligation bond series 2010B. 95R12 abatement for general obligation bond series 2011A. 96R12 is abatement for general obligation bond series 2012A. Next, we have A13 on the consent agenda, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Ordinance 133-012, City of Evanston 2012 tax levy. Levies the annual property tax for the general fund operations, Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, and police and fire pension funds. The ordinance was introduced in November 10 City Council meeting. Next, adoption of the tax levy ordinance 134-012, which levies the annual property tax for special service area number 4. Next, the public library levy tax levy. Request for tax levy ordinance 135-012 levies the annual property tax for the Evanston Public Library. The next item is off the consent agenda. That is the Evanston Township tax levy. Next, ordinance 106-012, amending Title 10 Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 6, illegally parked or abandoned autos. This has to do with illegally parked vehicles and private property in the fire lanes, and this is for action tonight. Next, the City Council is asked to adopt Ordinance 127-012, amending the City Code, Title 7, Chapter 12, relating to the city waterworks system, charges, rates, fees, and penalties. Staff is recommending a 3% water rate increase. This was previously introduced at the November 26th meeting, is for action tonight. P1, under Planning and Development, the committee met tonight and recommends that the Housing and as well as the Housing and Homelessness Commission and staff recommend approval of a $30,000 grant to Open Communities, we all know it as Interfaith Housing Center of the Northern Suburbs, to continue the Evanston Landlord-Tenant Program from January 1 through December 31st. The money provided for this is from the Affordable Housing Fund. Next is ordinance. Should this be off? This should be off the consent agenda. There's an amendment, and we'll let the committee chair deal with the matter of banquet halls as special uses. So P2 is off the consent agenda. P3 is off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair. P4, is that on the consent agenda? The gas station, okay. The Zoning Board of Appeals and city staff recommend adoption of Ordinance 138-012, granting a special use for the operation of an automobile service station and a variance for 19-foot accessory structure canopy height at 2400 Main Street. It was introduced November 26th. Next, under Human Services, approval of the Township Evanston bills for November 2012 in the amount of $155,135.79. The Evanston Supervisor of the Township recommends your approval. Next, the annual financial report of the Township. The Council is asked to approve the audit of the Township of Evanston financial statements for the fiscal year ending March 31, 2012. Next, your approval is requested for authorizing the city manager to execute a contract for a management audit of Evanston Township with the Novak Consulting Group for the not-to-exceed sum of $24,750. Next item, 01, Kurt's Cafe is off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair. The Economic Development Committee, this is 02, and staff recommend approval of financial assistance in the amount of $10,000 for facade improvement project for Bramer Animal Hospital on a 50-50 cost-sharing basis. 03, the Chicken and Waffles facade is off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair. Madam Mayor, this concludes the consent agenda, and I move approval.
Thank you very much, Alderman Rainey. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk. Aye. Alderman Braithwaite. Aye. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Aye. Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0. The consent agenda passes. Alderman Grover, would you do administration and public works?
Yes, Madam Mayor. As to agenda item 3.6, I move approval of a contract with Action Printing for the printing of our Recreation and Arts Activities Guide and our annual CAP Guide. Is there a second?
Second.
This came to council needing just additional information about the publication of the bid opportunity to a specific Evanston vendor, and we have confirmed that that vendor did in fact get notification of the bid opportunity. So it's been moved and seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Seeing no lights for further discussion, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Aye. Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0. The motion passes. Alderman Grover.
Madam Mayor, I move introduction of Ordinance 130-0-12 approving the tax increment redevelopment plan and redevelopment project for the Chicago, Maine redevelopment project area, the TIF plan.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Burris.
I will be voting against this TIF district, mostly on principle. I don't believe that we need the TIF in this area. However, I hope that if it, obviously it will most likely get passed, that it does what is intended to do in revitalizing the area. I just don't see that we need it at this time.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
And it is just for introduction tonight, so we're not acting on it. I just want to make that clear.
That is correct. City Manager.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As noted on your agenda, we plan to come back with a resolution to accompany the adoption if this is introduced this evening. We had a very good meeting with the Main Street Merchants Association. As you heard, several of them addressed you a few weeks ago with several concerns, and we'll be proposing several issues that will be included in this resolution at the request of the Merchants Association. We had about 40 merchants gather for a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning. It was a great turnout. There's a lot of excitement about the potential, but there was also concern regarding oversight and how the money would be spent, and we plan to come back to you on January 14th with a resolution that would articulate some controls, including the creation of a first ever for Evanston oversight committee made up of businesses so that any expenditure from the TIF would go through that oversight committee at the recommendation of the area businesses. So that will be on your agenda on January 14th.
Thank you. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Aye. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson. Aye. Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Aye. Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris. 8-1.
8-1. It will be introduced. Alderman Grover.
Madam Mayor, as to agenda item A9, I move introduction of Ordinance 131-012 designating the Chicago, Maine redevelopment project area of the City of Evanston as a redevelopment project area pursuant to the Tax Increment Allocation Redevelopment Act.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Seeing no lights on for discussion, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Frisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris. 8-1.
8-1, motion passes.
Madam Mayor, to item 810, I move introduction of 132-012, adopting tax increment allocation financing to the Chicago Main redevelopment project area.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. City Clerk, can you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris. No. 8-1.
8-1, the motion passes. Alderman Grover.
And finally, Madam Mayor, from the Administration Public Works Committee, I move adoption of ordinance 2T-0-12, the 2012 Evanston Township tax levy.
Second.
You gotta do 8.
Alderman Grover, is A11,
A11, you took that off.
Excuse me, back up. A11, I move adoption with the recommendation of the mayor of ordinance 139-0-12 to provide penalties against persons who deface or remove public art murals within the city of Evanston. Committee discussed that, this ordinance, and decided that we were going to seek amendments to it to include all public art, not just public mural art.
I think that would be an excellent amendment.
So this amendment will come back directly to council, I believe, at
Oh,
the next meeting.
So we'll introduce it, and then at the next meeting, it'll be amended.
And await the amendments.
All right.
Moving introduction.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to introduce the ordinance regarding defacement or removal of public art. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Sorry. That's what I used to put in. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay.
Alderman Grover.
Back to A16, Madam Mayor, I move adoption of ordinance 2T-0-12, the 2012 Evanston Township tax levy.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 2T-012, 2012 Evanston Township tax levy. Seeing no lights on for discussion, City Clerk, would you call the roll? This is for action.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris. 7-2.
7-2, the motion passes. Next is Planning and Development, Alderman Fisk.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. P2 is off the agenda. It's ordinance 129-012, amending the zoning ordinance, banquet halls as a special use in the BCDIM O1 and RP districts. We amended that in committee to eliminate the I districts.
It's been moved and seconded to pass ordinance 129-012 as amended. Well, it's for introduction, to introduce ordinance 129-012 as amended. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris. 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes. Alderman Fisk.
Yes, also off the agenda was P3, ordinance 95-012, amending the special use for a sheltered skilled care home at 2520 Grosse Pointe Road in the C2 zoning district. This is Alden Estates. So staff recommends adoption of ordinance 95-012 as requested by Alden Estates to permit greater flexibility in the management of the 99 beds within their facility. The Commission on Aging has no objection to the amendments to the special use ordinance for Alden Estates proposed by ordinance 95-012. This ordinance was introduced at the November 12th, 2012 City Council meeting. Move approval.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the ordinance. Alderman Burris.
I have concerns with Alden Estates not having to maintain preferences for Evanston residents, and over the years, there have been problems with Alden Estates following and being in compliance, and our former ombudsman had to monitor them regularly to ensure that they were in compliance. So I'm not sure why we now have decided that it's appropriate to change and not make them as restrictive and have preference for Evanstonians.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no problem with Alden Estates altering the configuration of the 99 beds, whether they're special care or otherwise. I do have a problem with reducing the 8 Evanston reserve beds. Right. And so I would like to divide this question. I would like to divide it based on that they want to be able to alter the agreement to use the 99 beds in any way they find the need. In other words, for, I don't remember the terminology, the skilled or sheltered care. Right. I don't care how they split that up because I figure they'll do that according to their need. But I do want to retain the 8 beds for Evanston residents. And also, I'd like a detailed explanation of what the Commission on Aging said. I mean, all we were told is Commission on Aging says they have no problem, but I don't know what no problem means. And I want to know what it means, but I feel that having been here as long as I have, I believe firmly that the 8 beds need to stay.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey.
But
Mr.
I am
Griffin,
curious what they said.
did you have an answer?
I really don't have anything to add. They reviewed the case that Saturday morning. They heard all consideration. Alderman Tindem, Dennis Marino, and the applicant were there, and offered no comment.
Well, they don't have a problem. I have a problem. So I would like to amend this to divide the question and have us vote on the 99 beds being configured any way they want, and then the maintenance of the 8 Evanston beds.
You a second?
Yes, second. I would second it.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. I agree with you completely. Next is Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Alden Estates has been a really good neighbor over the years, but it's the provision of the 8 public aid beds that makes them an even better neighbor. And like my colleagues, I think I'm reluctant to let go of those additional 3 public aid beds. Alden Estates has 44 locations, I think, and I'm not sure that this creates a financial burden for the corporation. I want to preserve those 8 public aid beds. And agreeing with Alderman Rainey, have no problem with giving Alden Estates the flexibility to determine the mix of shelter care versus skilled care beds in the facility. I read the planning and development minutes. I listened to the deliberation, and I think I don't know how we divide the question, if that can be done, but I'm with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Holmes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll pass, Madam Mayor, because Alderman Rainey and Alderman Grover have expressed my concerns.
Thank you. City Manager.
Yes, Madam Mayor, in conferring with the Corporation Council, our recommendation perhaps would be a different motion if the council wishes to consider directing staff to redraft the ordinances for 2 separate ordinances so that one condition would travel in one ordinance, and I guess there would not be a change to the beds. I think we would still feel comfortable coming back to you with a revised ordinance to make sure that we have all the language correct. So if you wish to have a motion to direct us to do that, we'd be happy to come back at your next meeting.
Would it be possible to speak to this on behalf of Alden? Or,
sure.
Well, just because we're talking about our ordinance, so it might be helpful to get our perspective. Again, my name is Steve Friedland, represent Alden Estates. I think I spoke to this when we were at P&D, but let me just be clear. The reason for the request When Alden acquired the facility in 1996, there weren't any skilled beds in that facility. So the zoning ordinance provided for the number of skilled beds that Alden had a license for from the Illinois Health Facilities Planning Board. A couple of years ago, we came back to the council because there was an ability to get 10 more skilled beds in that facility. So we asked for a different mix of the beds. There is an ability to obtain up to 99 skilled beds in that facility right now through the Health Facilities Planning Board. So the request is really to not make a distinction in the ordinance and allow for there to be 99 beds that are skilled or sheltered. And it sounds, I'm getting the sense that no one has a problem with that, and that's good for us. We appreciate that. In addition, for some reason in 96, and frankly, no one has institutional memory as to why this was the way that it was, there was a condition placed in the special use that 8 of the skilled beds be reserved for Evanston Medicaid patients. Mr. Marino's not here, but I think Mr. Griffin could speak to this. You directed, or the committee directed staff to look into, are there any other facilities like this in Evanston that have this condition? And staff was not able to find any. So we're not sure why that exists. The reason why we asked for a reduction is that over the years, and Alderman Burris, I'm not sure where your information is coming from with respect to difficulties at the facility, but I certainly know that Audrey Thompson, the current ombudsman who was at the Commission on Aging, feels that she has a very good relationship with Alden. Frankly, from our understanding, no one at the city tracks this. There is no tracking of the number of Evanston Medicaid patients. Certainly nobody asks us for that information. We have that information, and I think that the feeling was that over the years as we've looked at the facility, there is a potential that there are times where we don't have 8 Evanston Medicaid patients in the facility, and the concern was that we would pick a number that we know we will be able to meet, which doesn't mean that we won't exceed that number. But the concern was if we would ever have to leave a bed open for some reason in order to be able to make this, when, frankly, no other facility in Evanston has that requirement, that was the reason for it. I don't think this is a desire to really change anything that Alden has done at the facility, but it's in recognition of the fact that we were amending the ordinance, so we really wanted to take care of something that was, from our perspective, a little out of the ordinary. That was the basis behind it.
Thank you. Alderman Tandem.
Thank you. I did also do some research with former staff, and they painted a different picture than what I think may be going on there now. I think the administration of Alden Estates in Evanston now is in much better hands. I was willing to go along with the reduction because I had seen some numbers that would indicate that there really was not much more than 5 at any time even necessary. But ultimately, I was really curious to find out what the Commission on Aging was going to say, because I thought they would have maybe somehow tracked or had some real hardcore solid numbers to track this, but they didn't. So I'm sort of torn between what is the right thing to do. This is not a Sixth Ward issue. This is certainly a citywide issue, and I believe that I would tend to not change it in the future, given that the information is really not there.
Thank you. Alderman Burris.
Again, I want to reiterate that we have information that we can pull from a former employee here who has a lot of work with Alden Estates previously and has said that she would be happy to share the information going back. So I just can't understand why we would want to reduce the beds for our residents. We need to protect our residents and to make sure that they're getting the service that we've said that they would have. So it makes sense to break this up And if we need to find more historic information, I know Mr. Griffin, I'm sure, looked, but he hasn't been here all that long, and we have staff members that have a much stronger and longer history that we should utilize their offer to give us that information.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Giving you the opportunity to use those beds however you want. The fact that there are not 8 Medicaid patients in the city of Evanston looking for beds in nursing homes is just unreasonable. Of course there are. I think what you need to do is start reaching out maybe. And they're probably out there and you don't even know about them. The point is, this is a policy decision. The decision was made at the time. I'm not going to debate the attorney for Alden Estates.
I'm not asking you
okay,
to.
But I see. What I am saying is, we have an obligation to make certain there are opportunities for people on Medicaid in the city of Evanston. The reason it was done in 1996 is because we haven't had an opportunity to make that ruling, and we did, and it was accepted. Alden Estates is a great provider. Doesn't mean that they don't have to take 8 as opposed to 5. I'm saying they need to take 8. They can use the 99 beds however they want, which I think is a real opportunity for them. So I would hope that we could do this, and I'm not really sure why we can't divide the question and vote on it tonight.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. I
And
think
if
we're
may,
ready.
I don't care to debate the question, but Katie Coe, who is at the facility with Alden, could speak to the question, Alderman Rainey, with respect to how many Medicaid patients we have, if that's helpful to you. I don't want to take up your time if it's not. So
I don't think that's going to be helpful. Thank you, though. All right. Alderman Rainey has requested that we vote on this, splitting the question, and the city manager has suggested that we send it back to staff for a rewrite before we split the question.
I can understand that. I mean, if it's a technical reason that I'm not quite getting, that's fine with me, as long as it comes back in two form. I mean,
And I would appreciate a motion
okay.
to that effect, directing staff to redraft the ordinance and bring it back on January 14th.
Okay. Okay. Do I have to withdraw the other motion according to all?
That would be very helpful.
Take back your second. Did you second that?
I think
Whoever did, Dolores. All right. Madam Mayor, I move that that ordinance 95-012 be returned to the legal department and city manager's office for a rewrite dividing the question regarding the use of the 99 beds and the reservation of the 8 Evanston beds for either kind of care, for Medicaid.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Alderman Grover. Then we are next on economic development. Back to Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Off the consent agenda was Resolution 85R12, Kurtz Cafe Construction Loan and Job Training Grant. The Economic Development Committee and staff recommend City Council approve Resolution 85R12, authorizing the city manager to execute a loan agreement of up to $9,095 from the Economic Development Fund to Kurtz Cafe for the costs associated with the build-out of the cafe located at 2922 Central Street, and to execute a grant agreement with Kurtz Cafe for $21,332 to provide training for a minimum of 4 Evanston disconnected and unemployed young adult ex-offenders. Funding is provided by the Economic Development Fund Business Attraction and Expansion Account. Move approval.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Tundem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Kurtz Cafe is on fire. It's a buzzword in the 6th Ward in the community. There's a whole lot to say, but there's a very little to be said that's really not good about it. It has sort of brought the entire community together in a way that we're not seeing today, at least in an activity that has produced really good results. As Susan indicated in her talk, she has actually graduated 6 people. 4 of them were Evanston people, and has been a success in a very, very short time. We're looking at a larger amount of money to allocate to this from economic development, and I know that Paul Zelmazak had suggested a larger amount for the build-out, given the fact that the amount we know, 9,000 something, is not going to build out a kitchen to any extent. So if you could tell us how we would, we were, like I said, allocated up to 50,000, no more than 50,000, but there was a little confusion, and I think that the stated amount of 9 something was not really accurate.
Well, Madam Mayor, members of the council, I am Paul Zelmazak, Economic Development Coordinator. What Alderman Tenham is referencing is the way we broke this program down, the funding structure was in 2 chunks. One was the roughly 21,000, it was exactly 21,332 for a grant that would expand the YJC program to incorporate ex-offenders 18 to 25 in that range. I was working with Kevin Brown at the City of Evanston. And the second piece, the 9,000 that was published in the memo reflects the gap of 25,000, or excuse me, there was a $50,000 gap represented in the business plan. Okay, 25,000 of that was build out. Since the October 24th Economic Development Committee, Susan, Ms. Treichman was able to raise $16,000, and she'll explain that, I believe, momentarily. So what we did is we took that $25,000 build-out, that build-out budget, and we reduced it by the $16,000 that I had understood that she was going to use for her kitchen build-out. So we reduced the 25 down to the 16, we came up with the 9,000. However, I understand now that she was planning to commit that 16,000 to, and I'll have her verify this, to the outstanding debts that she identified in the proposal. That was back rent and some other items. Does that answer your question?
Yes. As I understand it, the 16,000 that raised, it's unrestricted money, so she can use it to apply to anything that she wishes. But as far as an economic development proposal, something more tangible like the kitchen build-out is the more appropriate approach for us to take, and that's, I believe, how we can help her best. In addition to the more than 16,000 she's raised since our meeting with economic development, she's also is well on her way to securing more by the end of the year. She's doing an end of the year giving mailing, and there are several events planned there for the end of the year. So it's going to be a very successful quarter for her.
Any questions that Ms. Treichman needs to answer? All right. Next is Alderman Burris.
Hi, Mr. Zelmazak. Always good to see you up here.
Thank you.
I have a lot of questions. As usual, I have concerns about giving money away or even loaning money to an organization that's not financially stable, and the likelihood of us getting the money back or a return on our investment is something I believe that we have a responsibility to do. Whether the business or organization does good work or not, we should be looking at the financials. So again, that's what I do up here. My first question is, I still can't figure out, is this a business or a not-for-profit? Do you have that answer?
It is today. It is not a not-for-profit. She is, unless you want to.
It's not a 501c3.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the answer to that.
I'm sorry. It's a nonprofit.
Microphone.
So it's a nonprofit, but we haven't received our 501c3 status yet.
Okay, so Mr. Zelmazak, or maybe this is a question for Mr. Farrar. If there is not a 501c3, and can a business take donations, but then whoever's giving the donation just can't take a tax write-off, correct? Right. You're not a tax. That's fine. I just want to be clear. That's, so people they can raise money for a not-for-profit, but whoever's giving the money can't take the tax write-off. So just for everyone out there.
But people are happy to do that anyway.
That's fine. So we have $16,000 that has been raised. We have a debt of $22,000 for rent, if I'm reading this correctly, but the $22,000 in debt for rent actually goes back directly to you because you're the property owner, correct? Okay, so we're not using the $16,000 to do the build-out, which would then reduce the amount of money that would be coming from taxpayers, but you'd prefer to take the $16,000 and give it back to yourself. I'm just being real, just trying to figure out the lines. Okay, so you want the $16,000 that you raised from individuals to go to you, and you want our money to go to the build-out.
No, I want the $16,000 that was raised to go to the back rent.
Which goes to?
The corporation.
Which is owned by?
Myself.
Okay, I'm just trying to follow the dotted lines here.
Can I defend the dotted line?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Because my last tenant left after not paying 7 months' rent through an eviction process. So I can't afford to just give it away. I just had an estimate done through Baird & Warner, through one of the managing brokers there, and we're giving Kurt's Cafe $7,200 a year in reduction in rent, for which I could rent it out, especially in that location, and get $7,200 a year more.
So here is my concern when people come before us, is not having a good business plan in place when you start. And then when things go awry, we find people in front of us asking for a handout. And my thought is, why aren't we saying, why didn't you start a good business plan to begin with? I believe Mr. Zalmazak had said at the Economic Development meeting that your attorney had suggested don't do this until you have a 501c3, or was that Mr. Griffin? I can't remember which. That it would be not, and Mr. Zalmazak, maybe you can answer that question or respond to that statement.
Right. I think Ms. Trishman would agree that she had received advice that she should probably wait till she receives her 501c3, but she felt passionate about getting her business going so she could serve the community before the summer months started.
Okay, but it's not a business, it's a not-for-profit, correct? Correct. So it's not a business. Okay, let's be clear about the characterization. So again, we're giving away a lot of money to businesses that haven't fully fleshed out their business plan, and we're being asked to bail you out, is what we're doing. And I'm just not sure that economic development's the place to do that. It might be community development block grant, but I don't think this is in a community development block grant area. It may be the not-for-profit route of asking foundations or people to give money. But and you'll probably get the votes to get your money. But my point is, I speak for the taxpayers that this is money that we could be using to pay off our $156 million debt, I believe, regular debt. I think we have $189 million in pension funds. We can't seem to keep within our budget and live within our means. We should be doing that instead of giving money because of businesses that did not do proper business planning. So I wish you the best of luck. I hope that we get the money back if you get this money. But I just don't understand why we continually do this over and over again, and we don't hold people accountable for doing a not-for-profit or doing a business plan that is that can be successful.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a couple of questions, Ms. Trishman. How long did it take you to raise $16,000?
2 weeks. Just about 2 weeks.
So
and we raised $35,000 on top of that throughout from April until then.
So I think you've probably not tapped into the total fundraising potential for Kurt's Cafe.
Definitely not.
If the support that we've heard is any indication, people are putting their money where their mouth is, it sounds like.
Definitely.
And the results that you've gotten for job placement and the one student who's gone to community college, how long did it take you to achieve those results?
3 months, for 2.5 months for 2 of the students, 3 months for the other students, and the 3 that will be launching this week have each been with us for about 2.5 months.
So I think those are 2 really important data points about the success of the program, success in fundraising. I don't think that this business is as unstable as you've suggested. And then I have a technical question for maybe our attorney. Does the lack of a 50C3 status affect your ability to undertake this partnership with Kurt's Cafe? Do we need a corporate entity on the other side, whether nonprofit or otherwise?
To be quite honest, Alderman Grover, I've not researched that question to that level of detail.
Okay. All right. So
I mean, it's a tax issue, and
right.
Alderman Grover, I
Yes,
believe
Mr.
that
Bobkowitz.
PS It's Social is an Illinois nonprofit corporation, so you have received that status from the state of Illinois. You are waiting for the Internal Revenue Service of the federal government to provide the 501c3, but you do have the corporate entity is incorporated in the state of Illinois, and it has been granted nonprofit status by the state of Illinois.
All right,
Thank you.
for clarifying. And then a last question. Are we looking to increase the amount of the loan to support the kitchen build-out? Is that what's been suggested by Mr. Zelmzak tonight? Or
So, again, I haven't made that suggestion, but that is a possibility. It's our recommendation in the memo at time of publishing was $9,000. In conversations before publishing the memo in early, it was about 2 weeks after the committee meeting, we had discussed the possibility of lending the entire gap amount on the build-out, which was approximately $25,000. When we learned that she had raised the $16,000 and we thought that it was being committed for build-out, we lowered that amount to $9,000. Had I known that at the time I published the memo, it very likely could have been a $25,000 ask.
Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a particularly difficult issue, I think, for a number of us. While you're doing great work and work that's desperately needed in the community, and we all appreciate that, I've started both a not-for-profit some years ago and a separate business later on. For the not-for-profit, it never even entered my mind to come to the city and ask for money. I mean, all of that was handled through donations. We raised a lot. The amount of support that you have, I think, could cover all of your costs through donations, and I would encourage you to go that route. It sounds like you're going to continue, and from the amount of support that you have, that's going to be successful. But I just don't think that the Economic Development Fund is the place for you to go for money. I have a problem with that. I have a problem, again, I agree with Alderman Burris. I also agree with Alderman Grover and her statements, but I don't feel comfortable with this. As we sit up here and we can look at it partly with our heart, but we really are up here to look at it with our head. And my head says there are a lot of problems here. And I need to feel that those problems are being solved. It's great that you're moving ahead with your 501c3, and hopefully that will help you attract even more contributions when people can take the tax deduction associated with that. But I would rather that this come back at a later time when you have all of those pieces in place and have really executed a well-organized funding program that you can come back and report to us on, rather than asking for city money.
Alderman Rainey.
I'm going to the other issue, and that is the $21,332 to provide training for a minimum of 4 Evanston disconnected and unemployed young adult ex-offenders. I'm interested in understanding how that will be administered and what is the program. Is it a fee for service, et cetera?
Right. Alderman Ray, I can give you the general response to that. This would be an extension of the program that you approved. It was brought forth by Kevin Brown. This was, I believe it was in mid-September. This was included the agreement. This is the extension of the YJC.
I know, but I want to know specifically, narrowing it down to these 4 people, how is this going to work? 21,000 for the 4 people, how will they be taken off-site to some of the, is this training at the site?
Right. I just have to be straightforward. I don't know the mechanics of the YJC program. Susan, do you want to speak to how the program works? You've used portions of it for...
If it's the way we've been working thus far with YJC, then the students would come to the cafe, they would get all their social services there, all their job training there, all their life skills training there, as well as their Oakton Community College GED training there. So it's all done in one place. What we found with this particular group of kids, that if we send them off-site for certain things, they tend to get lost and not come back. So the idea is to keep them at the cafe for an 8-hour period to train them. And the $21,000 will actually do a lot more than 4 kids.
All right. Well, was there a budget in here that I missed for the 21,000? No. I would really be interested in seeing that, because it has to be allocated in some way.
Right,
I
so
mean, we're not going to send over a check or to, I don't know who's going to get the money or how it's going to be dispersed. Those are the 2 simple questions that I
Right.
have.
So the 21,000 would be dispersed to YJC to expand the program that already exists, and then that money would be allocated for the stipend program for Kurt's Cafe.
All right, I'd like to see their customized program for Kurt's Cafe with the 21,000. That's kind of a serious amount of money, and I think we should really know how it's being spent.
I will get that.
Alderman Burris.
Yes. I wanted to just 2 of Alderman Grover's points about the fundraising. I guess, again, if your fundraising is so robust, why are you here at the city? If fundraising, you raise $16,000 in 2 weeks, wow, you should go into fundraising. And then why aren't you doing more of that to come up with the rest of the money?
One of the challenges that we're having is that without a kitchen, we're fairly limited in what we can do. We can fundraise, but we need to fundraise at a higher level. I just met with the owner, one of the Mortons from the Morton family, and we want to do chef's dinners, which will bring in a substantial amount of money. Cannot do that without a kitchen. A lot of what we're trying to do to advance the sales will only be done through the building of a kitchen.
But I'm not talking about sales, I'm talking about fundraising. You said
But the same concept is, in order to fundraise aggressively through the cafe, generally what you would do at a cafe thing is you would prepare great food and people would come and drop hundreds
so
of dollars.
the 16,000 didn't come that way, correct?
No.
Okay, so you theoretically could fundraise for the extra money to do the kitchen build out by, I mean, obviously you've had a lot of supporters here. You know, the anecdote is that you're doing good work in the community to help. I don't know, but again, it's if you're not for profit, and going back to Alderman Fisk's point of fundraising to get this done versus coming to the city. So if as Alderman Grover stated, you're doing robust fundraising, it seems like that would be the route to continue if in fact that is happening. The second point is. Alderman Grover said I had overstated the dire straits of the financial for the organization, but in your own words, or actually I should say in staff's words, that there's, as a result, Kurt's Cafe is, I'm reading, as a result, Kurt's Cafe is facing a financial crisis and anticipates having to close the business before the end of the year without an emergency infusion of capital of approximately $50,000. So that's not something I'm making up. I'm just reading from here and looking at the budget. Financially, this is not, if I was investing, looking at this budget and the debt, I don't understand how a rational investor would invest in a business with this much debt. So again, I'm glad that you're doing the work you're doing, but there needs to be better planning for organizations. A good idea is just not enough.
Am I allowed to speak to that? So what the challenge has been, Alderman Burris, is that we are open now. We opened for a specific reason in April, May, and that has been discussed numerous times. So the challenge in opening the kitchen is that every day that we're open, we go further behind because we're shopping retail. We're shopping at Jewel and Dominic's and all that kind of stuff. We've also run into a tremendous amount of, similar to chicken and waffles, of stopgaps that we could not have anticipated. If we get this grant and we're able to build the kitchen, then we will be able to shore up some of the challenges that we've been having.
But any business has, on construction, there should be a construction contingency. Anybody who's doing, and that's my issues actually with Chicken and Waffles as well, is I still haven't seen the detailed budget on their construction, and there should be a construction contingency. Again, that's business planning. That's business 101. When you're trying to get money, you should have a good business plan, and you should figure out, why would you open if you didn't have a kitchen? Why would you go forward with something when your lawyer says don't open until you have a 501c3?
The lawyer didn't say that. The lawyer was one of the biggest firms in Chicago, very well renowned, just won some huge award. And the lawyer did tell us that it was a 6-month turnaround on these 501c3s, top end 7 months. We've been waiting since December. What they did not know, and obviously we did not know, is that the IRS or whoever offers these things had made some changes, and they made many of the 501c3s reapply, and they had twice the caseload, and they didn't hire anyone to help with that project. So that was something that we could not have anticipated, no matter how hard we tried.
But that's part of any business startup or not-for-profit startup. Is there things that happen, things that go wrong? And I'm not sure why, again, the taxpayer should have to foot the bill for not doing a business plan and starting something when you didn't have the facility fully operational. Again, I just don't know how that should be on the taxpayer's back when that you could have prevented that from happening if you chose to. You made a different decision, and now you're asking us for the money to basically fix the decision that got you into the problem you're in now. Again, that's my concern, is we have over and over again people coming and saying, I didn't plan, I didn't have a contingency, so now I want the taxpayers to pay for my mistake. That's where my issue is.
And it's understood because I'm a taxpayer as well. But a lot of what happened in many, many businesses, as it does, can't be anticipated. The reason that I opened early did challenge some of the decisions that were made, but it also is youth that I really felt, and many people felt, and many whom I've spoken to on this board, really needed to be addressed. In many of the meetings that I've gone to when we're talking about youth violence and things like that, this is a group that we do want to address, and we speak publicly about wanting to help. And this is one way to help them, and I felt that this was one way that I could help them. Now, there was a $35,000 loan that was committed to me, or amount of money owed to me, that through the courts was approved, and that fell through, which I could not anticipate, but it was approved, and the courts approved it, and all of that kind of stuff. And then there was this delay in the 501c3 status. If you don't have the status, you cannot do federal funding and grant writing and things like that. So in a lot of the grants that we've applied for, our hands have been tied.
Again, that I don't understand why that's the taxpayer's problem. That's your problem, which you have now asked the taxpayer to fix.
The youth, though, are all of our problems.
And we have a lot of not-for-profits that work for youth. The Youth Job Center does a fabulous job. I'm a mentor for the Youth Job Center. So we have a lot that do good work. But they also put a not-for-profit plan into place. They put business plans into place. You chose not to do that, and you're asking us to bail you out,
I have a
is my point.
42-page business plan that I put into place.
But it didn't work.
It doesn't always work.
But you're asking us to bail you out.
It may help if I describe what I've seen of Kurt's Cafe. I took a friend there. She resides at the Presbyterian home. She went and had a group from the home take a bus to Kurt's Cafe, and they all had tea, and then they all bought candy, and they bought so much that I had to buy your candy today from Foodstuffs because Kurt's was sold out. This is a business that is doing not only a great deal for the youth in our community, and yes, we have lots of wonderful not-for-profits, but they're not reaching these kids, and Kurt's Cafe is. I'm not going to debate with you. Yes, I wish they'd opened later and all of that, but it is what it is, and we are where we are. They are doing wonderful things with young people that other people are not reaching, would like to reach, but are not capable of reaching. And the enthusiasm with which the community has greeted them is, to me, a sign of a business that is going to do all right.
But it's not a business, it's a not-for-profit.
Well, it's a sign of a not-for-profit that's going to make enough money to stay alive. So
It's not.
I think also, though...
You can't criticize it for not having a business plan and then say it's not a business. So let's be clear that I do think that they are going to make sufficiently much more money, and I challenge the community, many of whom came out to support them not only here at City Hall, but to support them by taking friends and neighbors to go and eat there. But it is, in my estimation.
I think also one other thing that I'd like to clear up.
And I'm sometimes considered a rational investor.
I don't think you'd invest your money in it.
Oh, yes, I would.
Okay. Madam Mayor, could you call on some of us who have our lights on?
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. The next is Alderman Tendem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When Susan opened up Kurt's Cafe, it was from the gut. It was a heartfelt, deep-wrenched concern for the youth of this city. And it was a gutsy move, obviously. The emotions are running high in this community and have been for quite a while. We do have programs. We have our traditional programs that do help. We started some new programs to deal with the violence recently, this past summer and fall, gun buyback, things like that. But Kurt's Cafe is happening. This is really ongoing and will continue to go. This is something that doesn't need a date to be set or a march. It's in place. It's working. It'd be a horrible shame not to support it. You know, the only worse risk we could take is financially is not supporting this. The youth that Susan has put to work or brought in under shelter cost the community thousands, tens of thousands of dollars when not supported by an organization, when left to their own means sometimes. So it's really, it's not about what happened in the past. It's about really the activity that's going on there now. It is, you have to go there to really appreciate it. It just has so much energy and so much vitality, and people coming from all over the city to help out. These donations, like we've discussed tonight, they just pour in. I don't think there has been a major event there to bring anything in since you made your initial $35,000 goal. But it is so popular and so so hard, it's so easy to believe in because it is happening that people are making it happen. Like I said, you have to go there to see it. You have to be there. You talk with the kids and you see what they're doing. You see the dedication of all the volunteers that are around. You see the group meetings. You see the police there. You see counselors there. It is one of the most lively, energetic, and positive things going on in the city now. It truly is. And I really, really hope that we can support this. And, I don't see any other way they're doing it. So I want to thank Susan for all she's done. It was a gutsy move, and you did it.
Excuse us. I know this is non-traditional. Justin Blake again. I just want to stand up and stand next to this lady.
Thank you, but it's 10 o'clock at night, and we really need...
I'm sorry, Your Honor. The council just has a unique opportunity to put their money where their mouth is and save our youth. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for taking a stand for our youth here in town, and thank you for having the courage to stand here tonight and represent them. The question that I have to council is, what is the cost to our community every time a youth loses his life to violence. And I think that's a serious question that we need to ask ourselves this evening. The atmosphere on the streets is a much longer conversation for a different venue. So I'm looking at this $21,000, I believe it's a loan, and I'm asking myself, 20, what? Yeah. And I'm asking myself the question, what is the annual cost to keep an inmate in prison?
81.
And so, if the cost is anywhere from $30,000 to $38,000, and maybe our corporate counsel can come back and give us that information at some point tonight, I see that we have a very unique opportunity here to support a very special business. I have had an opportunity to visit the location. I'm very impressed with what you've been able to do in a very short period of time. I think what some people may call poor planning, I assess it as you're a victim of success. And I don't think that when you opened up your doors, you planned to be so just overwhelmed with the work that you've taken on. I think just based on my conversations in the community, you've been very aggressive about fundraising. Without a doubt, I know for a fact that you will make it, just based on the fact that with the people that I've been in touch with and with the outreach that you're doing. And again, just given the state of our town right now, I think this is the best investment for our taxpayer dollars. And so I'm going to support it tonight. I can't predict the outcome of the vote. I know that you'll do well. Don't give up your dream, and God bless you in the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Alderman Holmes.
Well, I want to say two things. First, Kurt's Cafe only became Kurt's Cafe, I guess, last year, because I knew it 2 years ago. I think you called it RJ Cafe at that time, Susan, when we began to talk about the possibility of doing this. So this is not something that just came up, and it's been something that's been working on for a very long time, and we were hoping that it would have been on the west side, because that's what we talked about. But I really want to say that, we have to look at this, I think, in different eyes in terms of the loan part of the request, and then the other part of the request that is really going to go to the Youth Job Center. It's a part of our career Pathways to Pathways project that we just got an update at our youth meeting, I believe last week, from Manager Kevin Brown, so that we can, and I'm glad, Alderman Rainey, you already requested for an update of that, and I'm sure you can get that, because we did get a verbal report from Mr. Brown last week as a part of that. I'm certainly going to support this tonight. I too feel that we cannot do enough to try and provide as many opportunities as we can for that is within the purview of the city for youth that certainly have made mistakes, have gotten on the wrong path, and we want to make sure that we provide some kind of avenue for them to become good and productive citizens, law-abiding citizens. I want to say that clearly. So that I think Kurt's Cafe is one of many things that will happen and is happening in the city and can continue to happen. It's new. I'm really happy to see so many residents who have gone out to support it. It's a good thing, and I think that we can support it. I definitely think that we can support a loan. A loan is going to be paid back, and I know that I don't have the financial background as some other folk might have, but I think that if you make a loan to someone and they're going to pay it back and you have an agreement with them, that's going to happen. And once the Kurtz gets the kitchen going and can begin to make additional dollars, they will be able to meet their obligations and will be able to do the kinds of work that they want to do. It's just that the kitchen is not there, and it's very difficult to do the whole dream without the kitchen. So I'm definitely supporting it.
And Alderman Rainey.
Just want to remind the council that we generally stand when we're having discussions on the council. I'm not talking to you. I know that you're having leg trouble. Can you do the kitchen with the $9,000?
No. It'll cost a little bit more than that.
How much more? What we are standing, some of us are sitting, some of us are standing, talking about, the kitchen right now seems the most important. You can't help 4 kids if you don't have a kitchen. I mean, because you have to pay for all these other expenses that you have. What does it take to do the kitchen?
It would be about 15.
All right, I move that we hold the 21,000 till we get the report on the budget, and that we vote for 15,000 with an absolute time frame for commitment on your part for constructing that kitchen. What do you think that would be?
2 weeks.
What?
2 weeks.
You can spend 15,000 in 2 weeks. My kind of girl.
I've been working on it
All right,
little by little.
all right.
For
I move
months.
that.
Susan, give yourself more than 2 weeks.
No, it doesn't matter.
3.
Let's say a month.
Okay,
Let's
thank
say a
you.
month. We need that kitchen, and if it's going to take $15,000, Alderman Holmes, it's a loan. And I support loans to for-profits, not-for-profit. I don't care who. If they have a plan, and if I believe that they can be successful. All right, I'm amending whatever it is that we have here. $15,000 specifically for the construction of a kitchen, not for back rent, not for publicity, for the kitchen, okay? Because that, to me, is the key issue here. Get the kitchen going. I have been to Kurt's Cafe. Alderman Tindem paid me to go there. It was absolutely delicious. I am telling you, I thought it was absolutely delicious. But you need a kitchen, and I move 15,000 for the kitchen to be completed in a reasonable amount of time, basically a month.
Excellent. It's been moved and seconded to approve 15,000 for the kitchen. Now, there are still some lights on. Do you still want Alderman Wilson? You want to speak? Okay. All right. Go ahead, Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. A couple of things. First of all, I don't really see, I understand the reason for waiting on the job center allocation, but I'm inclined not to wait for it and go ahead and proceed with that. We will spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars speculating buying properties. We will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants to businesses that end up not hiring Evanston residents. I did a bit of due diligence in trying to track some of these unexpected circumstances with 501c3 corporations and found that that is clearly supported in the news these days. There is a substantial backlog. A lot of things have happened that are not anticipated. I'm not excited about a lot of the problems that you've run into, but we have a tangible program that's doing something now, not somebody who's talking about doing something. It's already in place. And the Youth Job Center has an excellent track record. We provide funding to them on a regular basis, so I don't see any reason to withhold that program from this project. A $15,000 loan compared to some of the other things that we've done in the past year is minuscule. So given the probability for success and the actual success in placing some of these youth who've been trained, I can't see why we wouldn't even consider this. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief. I think that you're doing great work. My only issue was to have you reach out to Congresswoman Schakowsky's office to help you with your 501c3, and I see that you've done that. And I'm hoping that her office will help expedite things in ways that congressmen's offices can do things like that. I used to work on the Hill. A letter from a congressman gets people's attention. So when I think about the money that we have had just spent in the last few weeks in terms of our policing work, it dwarfs this. It makes this look like nothing. I think about my own children being affected by the violence that has occurred in our community. They both have had contacts with some of the young people who've been involved in these incidents. And it affects all of us. So I admire what you're doing. I wish that people could get a 501c3 status faster. I know you'll get it, especially if Jan is there to help you. And I think that we should go ahead, and I can support this. Thank you. And I'll be there.
Thank you very much.
Alderman Fisk, did you?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I just have a couple of questions for staff. How is the loan to be secured?
Alderman Fisk, we were intending to secure it with the equipment, the kitchen equipment. So that's really the extent that we can really secure this.
Are you leasing or purchasing the kitchen equipment?
Purchasing.
It's so much less expensive to lease it. There are lots of places that lease kitchen equipment.
Most of what I've gotten has been donated or gently used, so it's just a matter of getting things put into place now, and electrical costs and things like that. Like one of the things we ran into was I got two amazing I got two amazing ovens donated from Cinnabon and Inspiration Corporation. I didn't have the electric to pull them in to get them working, so I have a lot of the equipment already. The ice machine would be leased, but the other equipment has been donated, or not all of it.
And staff feels comfortable that the appraised value of the equipment would cover the loan?
I haven't seen the appraised value of the equipment. I mean, that's something we're going to have to prove up cost. I mean, this is something that's straightforward. She'll purchase the equipment. She'll have a construction budget, and we'll compare that before we expend the funds.
Okay, my point, and really, I just don't want to beat this to death, but I'm still having trouble spending economic development money for this. It's getting very confused with, again, the emotional aspects of this project, which are considerable and which I absolutely support what you're doing. But in terms of spending the money, the other question I have is, why wouldn't we be giving the $21,000 to the Youth Job Center and having them supervise the? Oh, okay. But the $21,000 is going to you. This is going to the Youth Job Center. Okay. Okay. All right. Fine. All right. Then I'm sorry that I misunderstood that. So you feel comfortable that the $9,000 or now the $15,000 is going to be paid back to the city should this
I mean,
go under?
there's more backstory to this. We've met with Len, we've met with other professionals to discuss this. Once the kitchen is established, there's a fairly quick break-even point that happens quickly. We've baked in a one-year payback period where for 12 months there's no interest accruing or payments, and that 13th month is when the loan starts to be repaid. So we felt comfortable with that amount, that was possible based on the fact that they could be breaking even fairly quickly with the built-out kitchen.
Okay, and you're going to be meeting with them monthly to make sure that
we will
they're
monitor,
moving along in a successful and productive manner.
We will this is very, very common. We will be monitoring the project.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Grover, did you still want to speak? Alderman Burris.
Thank you. Many of you keep saying, oh, it's just a little bit of money here, list a little bit of money there, and so we should just give it away. And it's an emotional issue, but I don't understand why we're not at the Mental Health Board or Community Development. This isn't about economic development. No one's debating that we need to do things to help youth in the community. No one's going to argue that point. The point that's argued is this economic development, and do we have a plan? We keep saying we have an economic development plan, and we keep going off that plan. And that's why we keep going off our financial plan, and that's why we're in debt. And we'll continue to be in debt every time we say, well, it's just a little here and a little there. We need to be more disciplined about how we use our money. And we're clearly not doing that. We get emotionally wrought in these conversations, and people come and they say, we love this owner or that owner, or we love what they're doing. Agreed. But that's not a way to financially be stable long term. And so it might be $15,000 now, it might be $21,000. It was $200,000 for chicken and waffles. Now they're back for another, I think, $7,000. It's just nickel and diming, and instead of being a balanced budget or making sure that we have enough money, we just keep kicking it down the road. That is the issue.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey.
Well, this was a really good debate until one of our members felt that they had to put down some projects in order to build this one up, and I find that very offensive, Alderman Wilson, very offensive. This is a totally different project. This project has all sorts of debt. Others don't. This woman owns her property. The others. I just found that was so unnecessary for you to do, and I wanted to say it publicly because I don't think it's necessary for aldermen to bash other projects or other aldermen in order to make the one that they want to support after all these years look good. So I am finding it very difficult to have faith in the expenditure of this $21,000 without knowing exactly how the Youth Job Center is going to deal with this program. These are two different things. I don't know. Is Kevin Brown going to do it, who doesn't work for Youth Job Center? Is Youth Job Center, Cecilla Smith, going to do it? How is it going to work? And nobody here seems concerned. This is a grant. I think this is one of the most important pieces of this project, the $21,000. But I don't know how it's going to work. You don't know how it's going to work. And to $15,000, we know is going to go for the kitchen. How it's going to get secured, hopefully before one penny is administered, we'll know how it's going to be secured. The $21,000, I don't know how it's going to work. So if this isn't going to be divided, I'm actually going to vote against my own idea of providing for the $15,000, because I think this community deserves to know how are the most important people in this project going to be served. I mean, I keep hearing Oakton Community College for GEDs. I mean, that doesn't cost $5,000. Is this going to be used for salaries for these people? I hope so, but I don't know that. And I don't know, people yelling from the audience is reassuring.
The way that it's been working so far, Alderman.
But you're saying how it's going to work isn't really helpful either, because this is money going to an organization, not to you. And so I want to know how it's going to be administered to the people under your tutelage.
All right, we are now, all lights are off, and we're in a parliamentary puzzle. Alderman Fisk, you made the original motion, and it was seconded. And then Alderman Rainey, are you suggesting you're amending Alderman Fisk's motion?
I amended it for $15,000.
For $15,000.
Specifically for kitchen work with a time frame that it be constructed. And I expect staff to put together some kind of a plan on how the money will be paid. I think you probably already have a payback program. That's what I'm suggesting.
Madam Mayor, Alderman Rainey, what I would then suggest is that the motion be to adopt Resolution 85R12 as amended, amending into Section 1 the $15,000 grant amount, deleting the loan amount, and indicating that Exhibit A, which is the terms of the agreement, be amended.
Wait, could you
No,
repeat
I don't want
that?
to delete.
Wait.
The loan amount is
No.
amended to $15,000, not deleted. It's increased.
No, but there are terms and conditions which are Exhibit A of the resolution will
Okay,
need to be
that's
amended.
fine. Then-
So you would be amending the resolution to indicate the $15,000, and then the Exhibit
loan
A
terms.
would be adopted as amended, and
Second.
amended to reflect the wishes of the council.
Correct.
Alderman Fisk, do you accept the amendment?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Alderman Tendem?
Can we call the vote?
That's what I was about to do until your light went on. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Does it include the $21,000?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Against it.
Wait.
I thought it was separating.
No, it does. I mean, if you're accepting Alderman Rainey's amendment, it does not include the $21,000.
We're accepting your amendment, so what we're
to wait until you get the report. Right. That's what you asked.
what we're
That's what I
voting on
asked.
is Alderman
Okay.
Rainey's motion, which
This is $15,000 only.
is $15,000, and the $21,000 will be happening in January when when we have the report.
Because they're not going to do it anyway.
All right. City Clerk.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem.
Aye.
Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
No.
8-1, the motion passes. Alderman Fisk. We have 03.
03, I move approval of financial assistance through the Facade Improvement Program for Chicago's Home of Kitchen and Waffles, 2424 Dempster. The Economic Development Committee recommends financial assistance in the amount of $7,947 for a facade improvement project for Chicago's Home of Chicken and Waffles on a 50-50 cost-sharing basis. Funding is provided by the Economic Development Fund's Business District Improvement Fund.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the financial assistance through the Facade Improvement Program for Chicago's Home of Chicken and Waffles. Alderman Burris.
I've obviously be voting no on this. My concerns are during the economic development meeting is how this was presented. One, we gave this business owner $200,000 in a loan. I've asked for detailed construction documents on what's being paid for, how the money's being spent, because now we were told at economic development that there were problems that were unforeseen and there wasn't a contingency construction budget. Again, a business plan gets in trouble, business gets in trouble, and we're back here asking for more money to the city. I have some real concerns with that. Again, it's a consistent pattern. I've asked for this information for what this money is being spent on, why we're back here again asking for more money. Unfortunately, Mr. Zalmazak has not been able to produce that information. I've also spoke with Alderman Braithwaite, and he said there was no need to produce that information.
Just a point of order.
Sure. Did I did right?
No, that's incorrect, and I'll wait
okay.
to have say. And
All right.
You did receive a budget.
I did not. I've asked
Did
for.
you receive a budget?
I've asked for a detailed.
Did you receive a budget? Yes
not
or
a
no?
detailed construction budget. No, I did not. So I've asked Mr. Zalmazak for that information, and it has not been produced. I would like to know what the money is being spent on that we're now back here asking for more money again. Other projects where we've given out loans, we've not had those entities come back and ask for more money on the facade improvement. So my thought is that the amount of loan that was given should be, that money should also be used for the facade. So I need to vote no on this, and at some point I think, again, the taxpayer should know what the money's going for on that construction loan. How is that being financially, do we have seeing financial responsibility on this construction, or are we not?
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I said in the Economic Development Committee meeting, I support your business, and I think you made one of the best presentations initially that we've ever seen at the Economic Development Committee. So I thank you and your family for your commitment, not only to your business, but also to the community. However, in looking back on this, the facade actually was part of the money that was included in your initial loan. And as it was presented to us at Economic Development, it was a result of some unforeseen plumbing issues that was sort of the impetus for you coming back and asking for some relief in the form of available facade improvement funds that you hadn't applied for previously. I have a problem with that. Partly, as I said at the committee meeting, there are lots of businesses in our community that have just been faced with, and I don't remember what that valve is called, but businesses and property owners that have had to deal with large plumbing issues that don't have the same access to because they're not creating businesses, they don't have the same access or privilege of coming back and asking us for funds, and there has been no relief offered to them. So I think in terms of fairness, it would be very, very difficult for me to support you on this, especially when it's coming from a plumbing issue. So I won't be able to do that tonight, but I want you to know that I support your business and support you and your commitment to the community.
Am I able to respond to that, Madam Mayor?
No, I think we need to move along at this point. Alderman Holmes?
Well, we had this discussion in economic development, and I thought that it was clarified that this was purely a request for a facade, a legitimate request for facade relief. I think if I remember correctly, and I was trying to see if I could find the economic packet, but I believe that originally the request was for awnings and for the signage. And the proposal came in. I believe Mr. Griffin said that he met with the owner and explained to him that the three proposals were one had to be from Evanston. And once he redid that and they went to the awning place on Central Street, he purchased the awnings directly himself, and therefore it reduced the amount down to the $7,000 just for the signage. By the way, which is something that we requested, that it would be chicken waffles, Chicago's chicken and waffles in Evanston, or just vice versa, however it goes. The thing that I get really confused with both Alderman Fisk, you, and Alderman Burst, is that we want to keep mixing this up with the loan, which is going to pay back the $200,000. I really have a problem when we say we gave them this money. When you're going to pay a loan back, you didn't give anybody anything. They're going to pay the money back. And the facade, if it's a legitimate request for a facade, I just don't see why we have an issue with it. And how are we mixing it up? Mr. Griffin explained that he wasn't maybe presenting it in the way that it should have been presented. He did tell us about the sewer problem that they had, but he also said that night, and if you go back and listen, that he had mentioned needing and asking about facade from the very beginning. So it wasn't like he just said, okay, we had sewer problems, and now can I get some money to relieve it? So I listened very carefully that evening, and that we continue to be, I want to say, I don't mind us having questions. We ought to have questions, and people ought to be able to answer them. But when we begin to feel unfriendly, I have issues with that, with businesses that are coming to our community, wanting to be in our community, and, we treat them in a way that is not very friendly, really troubles me.
I have to say one thing here. It's not $7,000.
Okay, it's all right.
The money's wrong. I mean, it's not $7,000. If you look at the paperwork, it's only $5,000 something dollars. Plus, out of the $5,000, I was told it was $4,200.
Thank you. Really, we're okay. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you very much, Alderman Holmes, for your comments. I, too, am very disturbed sometimes with the tone and language that's used, particularly when addressing businesses that come to town. I think I've shared in the past, and I know this is a conversation I've had with economic development, that a majority of the vacancies in town are located in the west side of Evanston. And if this is that I represent are in the west side of Evanston. And so what I enjoy so much about this particular business is from the beginning there was a little bit of concern and confusion over the name of a business. And just like Kurt's Cafe, there were some of us that when we have our questions, we take the time to go out and visit the businesses. And what's so wonderful about this establishment is it's been proven in Bronzeville, it's been proven in Oak Park, and now we have an opportunity to bring it to Evanston. So with just a little bit more of the backstory, because I too see it as two different pools of money. We approved the loan based on his business model, financials, ability to secure loan, and skin in the game. And without question, I'm sure we're all confident that the tax roll will increase, his property taxes will increase, he will generate the business sales taxes, much needed, the business will generate alcohol taxes, and in addition to that, they're going to provide much needed jobs, again, to not only Evanston, but particularly the west side of Evanston. I've had some conversations earlier with committee members in the beginning of this project where we were exploring the facade improvement program. And at the time, just based on the climate and economic development, we went with the path of least resistance, and we ended up with a loan. So here we are now evaluating the business, which, again, I hope it's based on the facade improvement program. And so when I look at the eligibility for improvements, it's just right on our own website, painting and exterior elements. Well, guess what? They're doing that. Replacement of street-facing doors. Guess what? They're doing that too. Installation of new exterior lighting. Check that box. Replacement of storefront windows. Check that box. Restoration of historic details. Check that box. And finally, the installation of awnings. So to Alderman Burris, when I look back, and I was copied on that request, the budget, I see where the money that they spent on all those line items. And so do you. It's in, I know that you received it. And so lighting fixtures, he's paid $32,000. Brick and stonework, $16,000. Stucco, $20,000. Patio installation, concrete, $21,000. I could go on, but just in the interest of time, the total of that comes to $79,895. The request that's in front of us this evening, it isn't even 50-50, it's 5%, $5,895 for the facade. He'll pay back that $200,000 with a 5% interest. He'll do it in the time that's been specified, and the only grant that we're giving to this business is $5,895. And I'm going to support it tonight.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite. I would like to remind everyone that it's 10:35 in the evening, and we have an executive session after this, and I'm losing my voice. Next is Alderman Burris.
As Alderman Fisk mentioned, the facade was part of the original construction budget. So coming back is just double dipping in my estimation. And I just don't understand why we, again, when someone doesn't plan properly, they're back here asking us for money. I wish I could do that with my construction projects, that something goes wrong and I'm here asking the city for money. That just doesn't make sense to me. So we need to evaluate again. We said we give them $200,000. That included the facade, but we're back here saying no, we need more money. At what point does this body say no? Do we say no to every business, or do we say yes to every business that walks in the door with a good story? Do we say yes to, oh, it went wrong, so we need more money from you? We have to say no occasionally. I'm not sure the last time this body voted no to give out money. And we wonder why at budget season we end up, fortunately this year, we only laid off 4 people. But every year, we're laying people off. Every year, we're looking for gap measures because we refuse to say no.
Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I don't want to say any more about this project other than, as Alderman Burris repeated, this was included in the original construction documents that was presented to us. I do think that we as a council need to think about, in the longer term, the economic development funds and how we establish policy. I am concerned about businesses, and I have a business. I'm not going to put down anybody else's business. I'm going to promote everybody's business. But we need to be able to ask these questions, and I feel uncomfortable having to deal with these questions at council. I'm very curious about what the discussion, and I don't need anyone to answer this, what the discussion at the staff level has been. And I think that's an appropriate question for us as a council to answer down the road as we think about how we use our Economic Development Committee and also the funds as well. Because I don't see that we have a policy that we're following, and I think that's part of the frustration. Alderman Burris has been very consistent. You may not like what she has to say or the way she says it, but she's been very consistent in speaking to the need for such a policy, and that's something that I absolutely share her frustration in. So I would hope that as this council moves forward and whatever happens with the next council, that we set aside time to think about, rather than reacting to groups that come to before us on an individual basis, establishing a policy that we really will follow, and a discussion with staff on how they're going to implement that.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Well, I think in this case we are following our policy. We loan money for the development of this business, of this establishment. And we have a program for facade rebate. And all this is an application, the same as all the other applications we've reviewed for a facade rebate. Things come up when you're doing construction. I don't care what construction project it is. And this is simply one of those situations where you reach the end of the road and then there's a facade and you're asking for a rebate. And I think you're entitled to it just like other businesses are. And so I'm going to support this. It's too bad it didn't all get included in the $200,000. But the only way to generate more property taxes, enhance the tax base, generate sales taxes, liquor taxes, is to help support some of these projects. And, you know, I think some of us do see that there's a policy, and that is if you can create something that wasn't there before, and you have done some due diligence to show that going forward it has a good chance of success, then you're doing economic development the way it should be done. Maybe we don't have, section 1, A, B, C, and D all spelled out. But if you can pull that off, if you can create something that's not there, or you can expand something that needs enhancement, and you have a good chance of success, I have no problem with loans and facade rebates. And so let's get going. I went by your store the other day. It's looking good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
Call the question.
Second.
Right. Seeing no discussion, City Clerk, could you call the roll?
Oh, could we have a clarification of exactly what the amount is?
7,900.
Oh, there's been a 5,000.
Not to exceed, not to exceed the 7.
I got it.
See, I've paid $10,000 already. He's not owed that.
Well, that's okay, but let's go with this, not to exceed 7,947, and let's go with
So
it.
it sounds like we only have 5,000, but it won't exceed 7. Whatever.
All right. Is everyone content? You know what you're voting on? Yes. All right. City Clerk?
Alderman Fisk. No. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson. Aye. Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Aye. Alderman Grover.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
No.
7-2.
7-2, the motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, we are at call of the wards. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I want to thank staff for Coming to the ward meeting last week, we had a really interesting discussion, and I thought engineering staff did a good job, and city manager as well. So thank you for participating. I'm sad to tell you about the passing of Mark Burnett, who was longtime curator and archivist at the Evanston Historical Society. Mark was also one of the 5 of us who formed the Northeast Evanston Historic District Association to help promote the creation of a residential historic district in Northeast Evanston. He was a really fabulous person, and anyone who ever had the opportunity to use the archives at the Historical Society just found him to be such a supportive and knowledgeable person. I had lots of people call me up later and say that they would go in to research their home or research whatever interests they had in Evanston history. If Mark couldn't put his finger on what they needed, that it wasn't unusual for them to get a call 2, 3, 6 months later, and Mark saying, "Oh, by the way, I was looking for something else, but came across something that pertained to your search." He had a mind that really worked in that way, and was just a natural person who just was a teacher and such a wonderful communicator. He knew more about Evanston history than anybody that I know, and so I will certainly miss him. He was a resident of the 3rd Ward, and after he left the Historical Society, went on to National Louis University, where he became archivist for the university. But a wonderful guy, and he will be very, very missed.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I'd like to offer a word of condolences and prayers to the family of Carolyn Murray. In addition to that, we have another individual that's in the hospital right now. So prayers go out to both the families and friends and the individuals in the town that's been affected by the recent string of violence. Over the last couple of months, we've been dealing with a lot in town, and I think the community has responded very strongly. We didn't get here overnight, and I pray that we're able to move forward. I just want to acknowledge the mayor and Alderman Holmes and Joe McCray and Kevin Brown and Nathan Norman for all of their efforts in helping the community to heal and understand. This Thursday, the 13th at 7 o'clock, we'll host our 2nd Ward meeting where we'll have Chief Eddington there to answer questions for 2nd Ward residents and anyone else who shows up, just to update them on the recent shooting. In addition to that, January 10th, just in advance notice, we plan on hosting a meeting with 2nd Ward residents to hear from the developers on the 1890 Maple project. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. My condolences go out to the Murray family. I also want to congratulate the ETHS choir. They sang at the White House on Saturday, and they actually probably got home not too long ago. They also went to Sidwell Friends School, which is the school of the Obama daughters, and sang there, I believe, today. It was, by every account I heard, a marvelous trip to the White House. And so congratulations to the choir director and all of the choir members for that. I'd also like to wish everyone Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, and a Happy New Year. And I'll look forward to working with all of you in the new year.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to invite everyone on Saturday, this Saturday at 10 o'clock at the corner of Darrow and Simpson for the prayer vigil. This is the monthly prayer vigil that's held in our efforts with the clergy in terms of our nonviolence efforts. And also at 11 o'clock at Christ Temple Church, we will be having the gun buyback. So we just want to remind people, if you know someone who has an old rifle or any kind of gun that's hanging around the house, that this will be a way to turn it in and get it taken care of, and there is cash for it. However, that is not the, I'm sorry? Only two, yeah. If you have more than two, we're only taking two per family. I believe that's the way the clerk just reminded me of that. Also, just to remind you all that on the 20th of December is the Fifth Ward's annual potluck. Bring a dish to serve 5 or 6 people and come and join us and help us close out 2012. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Tandem.
Thank you. I would also like to thank the Tanabab Chabad House and Rabbi Dov Hillel Klein for the lighting of the menorah tonight. Representative Schakowsky, the mayor, and I were there, and it was a fun event as usual. I'd like to thank them for all they do every year at this time. I'd also like to wish everybody a healthy, happy, and very safe holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You still can hear the ETHS choirs perform. You have another opportunity on Saturday, I believe, at 2 o'clock at Lake Street Church if you want to hear some really good choral music. I attended the week before last the National League of Cities Conference. It had some great information and workshops on everything from economic development, finance strategies, placemaking, green innovation in Boston, workplace development, and I promise you a written report to add value for all of you, but probably not until 2013. So please be patient. Thanks. And we need to thank, we have a new walking path, a marked walking path that I know you wanted to mention, Alderman Holmes. Our forestry and facilities crews have installed a marked walking, running bike path that connects our Ladd Arboretum to Twiggs and Butler Parks. It is a nearly perfect 2-mile loop. You can start at the Ecology Center, which is where the loop is marked to begin, but you can pick it up anywhere on either side of the channel, linking the 5th and the 7th wards. So thanks to Paul D'Agostino, his staff, some of our public works or facilities crews as well, and Jim LaRochelle, who really drove that through our Ladd Arboretum Committee. So find your way to the path, bring your dog. This is, I'm talking about it as our new outdoor fitness center. If you include the fitness station in Twiggs Park and the playground, and so it's a new amenity for Evanston. And merry, merry everything. See you next year.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
I'd also like to tell the community if you have any automatic weapons or brand new handguns, you may also take them. To
Thank you, Alderman
gun
Rainey.
We'd love to have those. On your wish list. Madam Mayor, tonight I just found that the citizen comment was a bit off the charts. And while I hate making my my aldermanic referrals all about Anne, I am extremely curious to know the role I played in generating the Viola lawsuit.
That completely puzzled me, but...
Well, let's not be puzzled anymore, and could the law department please explain how I caused that lawsuit, because that raises me to a whole new level that I wasn't even familiar with. So anyway, I would like some clarification. Alderman Nguyen did a great job tonight clarifying about the meals that are being served at her church, and I would like some clarification about the comments made tonight.
I think our law department can do that, but I don't think they'll find anything.
Well, I would like
But they can say that.
I would like a note saying we can't find anything.
That would be...
Alderman Rainey, would you like that on an agenda or off agenda?
I don't need it on an agenda.
Thank you.
Just
Well,
need
I
it.
think it should be public.
All right. And finally, I would like to wish everybody a happy holiday.
Thank you. Alderman Burris.
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson, do you have a motion?
Pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding real estate, security, and minutes. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. These exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2A, C5, C6, C8, and C21.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Be midnight. Be tomorrow when I get home.
I think my next report is going to be
Spinning your wheel. I know. Tonight was so,